Bro, what the hell is wrong with Konoha's ninja system when a baby, a literal newborn, looked at the nine tails, said Hakai, and made the most powerful demon in existence run and hide like a scared little bitch? This isn't Naruto. This is a god.
The night the Nine Tails attacked Konoha, something happened that no one in the shinobi world was ever able to fully explain. The infant did not cry. He opened his eyes. Pupils narrowed into sharp, cat-like slits, irises burning violet, raised one tiny hand toward the towering demon fox, and the air around him warped. The Nine Tails, the most feared creature in existence, the beast that had leveled mountains and parted oceans, flinched. Then it ran. Not because it was forced, because it recognized something in that child that made every predatory instinct it had scream one word: retreat. That baby was Naruto Uzumaki, and he was not just a Jinchuriki. He was something far older, far worse, far greater. He was the living reincarnation of a god. Now let me tell you exactly how it happened. Because the version you heard, the official one, where the fourth Hokage heroically sacrificed himself to seal the Nine Tails into his newborn son, that's the sanitized version. The version they tell at the memorial service every year because the truth would make people lose sleep. Here's the truth. Minato Namikaze stood on the altar, blood pouring from his side, Kushina's chakra, chains barely holding the Nine Tails at bay. The fox was thrashing, each tail whip cracking the earth for miles. The sky was orange with fire. Half the village was rubble. Hiruzen Sarutobi and every available shinobi fought at the perimeter, and they were losing. Minato had one option left: the Reaper Death Seal, the forbidden technique that summoned the Shinigami itself, the god of death, to claim both the target and the caster. He would seal half the fox's power into his son. He would die. Kushina would die. Naruto would grow up alone but alive. He bit his thumb. He slammed his hands together. The summoning circle erupted beneath him. The temperature dropped 40 degrees in an instant. The air smelled like old graves and copper. The Shinigami materialized behind Minato, towering, spectral. Its face was a mask of hollow hunger, its arm already reaching through Minato's body, extending outward toward the Nine Tails with ghostly fingers. And then the baby opened his eyes, violet, cat-like, ancient. Every person within a mile felt at the same time, not chakra, something else, something heavier. Something that pressed down on their souls like the hand of something so massive it didn't have a name. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the god of shinobi, the man who had fought Madara's legacy and survived 3 wars, dropped to one knee and didn't understand why. The infant, 6 pounds, 4 ounces, 3 minutes old, raised one tiny hand toward the Shinigami. And Sakai. A burst of purple light, not chakra, not any known energy, something that existed outside the periodic table of this world's power systems, erupted from that tiny palm and hit the Shinigami's outstretched arm. The arm ceased to exist, not destroyed, not damaged, erased. Every atom, every spiritual particle, every metaphysical thread of the death god's limb simply stopped being. The Shinigami recoiled. The god of death recoiled from a newborn baby. Its spectral face twisted in something no human had ever seen on it before: fear. It vanished. It didn't finish the summoning. It didn't claim its price. It fled back to the pure world so fast it left a vacuum in the spiritual plane that gave every sensor-type ninja in the village a nosebleed. Minato stared at his son. His mouth was open. His hands were still in the seal position. He was supposed to be dead. He was very much alive. The Shinigami had not taken his soul because the Shinigami had decided, apparently, that being anywhere near this child was not worth the meal. The Nine Tails saw the whole thing. The most powerful tailed beast. The creature that considered itself the apex predator of this dimension. It watched a newborn erase the arm of a death god, and its 9 tails went stiff. Every single one, rigid with a fear so primal it predated language. The fox looked at the child. The child looked at the fox. And the 9 tails did something it had never done in its entire existence. It stopped fighting. It stopped roaring. It stopped everything. And it walked calmly, quietly, almost politely, toward the seal on Naruto's stomach and sealed itself inside. Willingly. No struggle. No resistance. It went in like a tenant who just found out his landlord was something that ate gods for breakfast. Kushina's chakra chains went slack. She stared at her baby. "Minato," she whispered. What? What is he?" Minato didn't answer, because he didn't know. And for the first time in his life, the yellow flash of Konoha, the fastest man alive, the genius who had outsmarted entire armies, had absolutely no idea what to do. Naruto closed his eyes. He went back to sleep. He was not impressed by any of this. Minato survived that night. So did Kushina. The Reaper Death Seal was never completed, because the Reaper had decided it valued its remaining limbs. This alone changed everything. The fourth Hokage did not die. The village did not mourn its leader. The political vacuum that would have let Danzo and the elders tighten their grip never formed. Minato remained in power. Kushina recovered, and their son grew up in the Hokage mansion. But grew up is a generous description of what Naruto Uzumaki did. What Naruto did was exist. Loudly, inconveniently, in a way that made everyone around him deeply, fundamentally uncomfortable without being able to explain why. By the time he was 2, the Anbu guards assigned to the Hokage's household had requested transfers. All of them. Not because anything happened, because of how it felt to be near the boy. One guard described it in her transfer request as a persistent sense of cosmic irrelevance. Another simply wrote, "I do not wish to be near the child. I cannot explain further. Please reassign me." By 3, Naruto had developed 2 dominant personality traits: a blank, half-lidded stare that made grown adults feel like they were being evaluated by something ancient, and an intense, almost religious devotion to food, specifically ramen. The boy would eat ramen for every meal if allowed. He ranked the broths. He critiqued the noodle texture. He once reduced a chef to tears, not through cruelty, but through a look of such profound disappointment at an overcooked egg that the man questioned his entire career. By 5, the fragments started surfacing. Naruto would say things that made no sense. He told Kushina unprompted that she reminded him of someone who also had red hair and was very loud, but could cook better. He told Minato that his speed was adequate for a mortal. He once looked up at the moon and said, "I destroyed a bigger one once." And when Minato asked what he meant, Naruto just shrugged and went back to his ramen. Minato and Kushina loved their son. They did. But they also could not shake the feeling that their son was not entirely their son. That something else lived behind those purple eyes. Something that tolerated being a child the way a king tolerates wearing a disguise. "He's special," Kushina said one night, watching Naruto sleep. Even in sleep, the air around him was heavier, denser. "He's beyond special," Minato replied. "I've run every diagnostic seal I know. His chakra network is normal, but there's something underneath it. Something I can't measure, something that makes my ceiling arrays go haywire just by proximity. Is it the fox? No, the fox is quiet, terrified quiet. I've checked the seal. The 9 tails is curled in a corner of the seal space, and it will not come near the bars. Our son's tenant is afraid of our son." Kushina looked at Minato. Minato looked at Kushina. Neither of them had a follow-up to that. By the time Naruto was enrolled in the academy at age 7, Minato had made a decision. He would let Naruto develop at his own pace. He would not push. He would not prod. He would let the boy attend the academy like any other child, because maybe, hopefully, structure and normalcy would help him be normal. This was optimistic. This was also very, very wrong. The Konoha Ninja Academy operated on a simple principle. Take children, teach them to throw knives and control elemental energy, and then send them out into the world to kill people for money. It was organized, methodical, and had produced some of the finest shinobi in history. It was not designed to handle a god. Naruto Uzumaki arrived on his first day wearing the standard blue uniform with the sleeves rolled up, his blonde hair sticking up in every direction, and those impossible violet eyes half closed in a permanent state of aristocratic boredom. He walked into the classroom, scanned every face in the room, found them all uninteresting, walked to the back row, sat down, put his head on the desk, and went to sleep. He did not introduce himself. He did not greet anyone. He was asleep within 45 seconds of entering the building. Iruka Umino, the assigned instructor, was a patient man, a kind man. A man who had survived the Nine Tails attack as a child and dedicated his life to teaching the next generation. He approached the sleeping boy. "Hey, you need to be awake for class." No response. I said. Iruka reached for Naruto's shoulder. Every kid in the classroom felt it. A pressure. like the room suddenly got smaller, like gravity got heavier, like something enormous had just noticed them and was deciding whether they were worth the effort of acknowledging. Iruka's hand stopped 3 inches from Naruto's shoulder. His mouth went dry. His fingers trembled. He was a chunin. He had combat experience. He had faced enemy ninja and survived. And right now, every cell in his body was telling him that touching this sleeping child would be the last thing he ever did. Naruto opened one eye, purple, cat-like. "I already know everything you're going to teach this year," he said. His voice was flat, not arrogant, just factual, like someone telling you water was wet. "And the year after, and probably the year after that. Wake me when lunch starts." He closed his eye and went back to sleep. Iruka stood there for a full 10 seconds, hands still hovering, trying to process what had just happened. Then he straightened up, walked back to his desk, and taught the rest of the class with the distinct feeling that he was performing for an audience that included something far beyond his pay grade. The other students noticed. Of course they noticed. Sasuke Uchiha, last survivor of his clan, brooding prodigy, sat 2 rows ahead and glanced back at the sleeping blonde exactly once. His eyes narrowed. He couldn't explain the feeling he got from looking at the new kid, but it was the same feeling he got standing at the edge of the Naka River Gorge. A sense of depth, of falling, of something so far down you couldn't see the bottom. He looked away and didn't look back. Sakura Haruno felt a headache form behind her eyes every time she tried to focus on the boy, like her brain was refusing to fully process what it was seeing. Shikamaru Nara, who was also sleeping, woke up involuntarily. That alone should tell you something. Shikamaru Nara, the boy who had turned laziness into an art form, was pulled out of sleep by the ambient pressure of Naruto's existence. He looked at the blonde, muttered, "Troublesome," with a sincerity that surprised even him, and decided to sleep facing the other direction. Kiba Inuzuka's dog, Akamaru, whimpered and hid inside Kiba's jacket and would not come out for the rest of the day. Hinata Hyuga looked at Naruto and her Byakugan activated involuntarily. She saw his chakra network, normal, blue, standard, and then she saw something beneath it, something purple, something vast. She couldn't see where it ended. She deactivated her Byakugan immediately because looking at it felt like staring at the sun through a telescope. Her nose bled. She fainted. Nobody connected these events. Nobody except Shino Aburame, whose insects refused to fly within 10 feet of Naruto. The Kikaichu, parasitic insects that fed on chakra, creatures that had never refused a meal in the recorded history of the Aburame clan, took one collective whiff of whatever Naruto was emitting and unanimously decided they weren't hungry. "Fascinating," Shino whispered to nobody in particular. "My allies are displaying behavior consistent with extreme self-preservation instinct. This suggests the new student is a predator of a classification they have never encountered." He paused. "I should probably not sit near him." Smart kid, that Shino. The weeks passed. Naruto slept through every class. Every single one. History, taijutsu theory, ninjutsu fundamentals, weapon practice, chakra control exercises. He attended none of them in any meaningful sense. He was physically present and spiritually on vacation. Iruka, to his credit, tried. Multiple times. "Naruto, can you demonstrate the clone jutsu?" Naruto didn't open his eyes. He snapped his fingers. 3 perfect shadow clones, not regular clones. Shadow clones, a shonen-level forbidden technique that he had no business knowing, appeared in the room. They were flawless, solid. One of them Yuka stared. "Where did you learn that?" "Learn what?" "The shadow clone jutsu. That's a forbidden technique." Naruto's clone looked at Iruka. "It's chakra division. It's not complicated. Can I go back to sleep now?" All 3 clones dissolved. Naruto was already unconscious again. Iruka went to Minato's office that evening. The 4th Hokage, still in power, still alive, still dealing with the daily headache of governing, listened to the report. "He used shadow clones," Iruka said. "Plural, casually, without hand signs. Hokage-sama, with all due respect, what is your son?" Minato sighed. It was the sigh of a man who had been asked that question in various forms for 7 years and still didn't have a good answer. "He's my son." "Respectfully, sir, your son made Akamaru wet himself from across a room. He's my unique son." That was the official stance. Naruto was unique. That covered a lot of ground without explaining anything. Minato preferred it that way. The alternative was telling people the truth, and the truth was that his son had erased a death god's arm at 3 minutes old, and Minato had spent 7 years hoping that was a one-time thing. It was not a one-time thing. The Academy Taijutsu assessments came around. Every student paired off for sparring matches. Naruto was paired with Kiba. Finally, Kiba grinned, cracking his knuckles. I've been wanting to see what the sleeping kid can do. Akamaru's been scared of you since day one, but I'm not my dog. Akamaru barked from the sideline. It was not an encouraging bark. It was a bark that clearly communicated. I tried to warn you. Kiba charged. He was fast for a student, feral. He led with a claw strike aimed at Naruto's midsection. Naruto's body moved. Not his mind, his body. His eyes were still half closed. His expression hadn't changed, but his torso shifted 2 inches to the left and Kiba's claws cut air. Kiba spun, attacked again. Naruto leaned back. Kiba threw a combination. Naruto's body wove through every strike, like water flowing around rocks. Ultra instinct, partial. The boy's body was reacting on its own, drawing from a well of divine combat memory that spanned universes and eons. Naruto didn't even seem fully aware Kiba was getting frustrated. He attacked faster, harder. He activated his beast human clone. He went for fang over fang, a spinning double attack that should have hit. Naruto raised one hand, still looking bored, and caught both spinning Kibas, one in each hand. The rotation stopped dead, like he'd caught 2 baseballs. The training ground went silent. You're loud, Naruto said. He set Kiba down gently, and your dog is smarter than you. He walked off the field. Kiba stood there with his mouth open for a solid 30 seconds. Akamaru trotted over, looked up at his partner, and the expression on the small dog's face very clearly said, I told you. The incident was reported, added to a growing file. A file that was starting to concern people, particularly the Hokage's council. The council meeting happened on a Tuesday. The Konoha Elder Advisory Council consisted of Homura, Koharu, Danzo, lurking in the shadows as always, and Hiruzen Sarutobi, who had stepped down as Hokage but remained as an advisor. Minato sat at the head. The boy is dangerous, Danzo said, because Danzo said that about everything he couldn't control. He should be placed en route for specialized training and no, Minato said. Fourth Hokage, you are allowing sentiment to. I said no, Danzo, and if you send anyone near my son again, yes, I know about the 3 root agents you sent last month, I will consider it an act of aggression against the Hokage's family. Are we clear? Silence. What happened to the 3 agents? Hiruzen asked carefully. Minato's eye twitched. They made it to Naruto's bedroom window. All 3 reported the same experience. They described a feeling of absolute insignificance. One retired from shinobi service entirely. He runs a flower shop now. The other 2 requested long-term therapy. Hiruzen lit his pipe. And Naruto? Didn't wake up? He didn't wake up? He rolled over in his sleep and mumbled something about mortals being noisy. The agent's psychological damage was caused entirely by ambient proximity. The room was quiet for a long time. I will monitor the situation, Minato said. But Naruto is not a weapon. He is not a project. He is my son, and he will develop at his own pace. Danzo disagreed. Danzo would always disagree. But Danzo also was not stupid enough to push a man who had the Flying Thunder God at his disposal and a son who had traumatized elite operatives in his sleep. The meeting adjourned. The file kept growing. The years at the academy settled into a rhythm. Naruto slept. The world went on around him. He ranked ramen. That was his life. But pieces of who he was, who he had been, kept leaking through. He would sometimes stare at the sky with an expression that wasn't boredom. It was something older, longing maybe, like he was looking for something that wasn't there, a specific star, a specific face. He once told Iruka, completely unprompted, there was someone, an attendant. He was tall, purple, very annoying, very loyal. Then he blinked, looked confused, and asked what was for lunch. Kushina found drawings in his room, purple energy, pyramids he'd never seen, a tall, thin figure standing beside a shorter figure on a planet that had no equivalent in any atlas. She cried, not from sadness, from the overwhelming, impossible weight of understanding that her son carried a life inside him that she could never fully reach. Mom, Naruto said from the doorway, those purple eyes soft for once. The ramen's getting cold. She wiped her eyes and smiled. Coming. He was still her boy. Somewhere under the god, Somewhere behind the cat-like eyes and the pressure that bent reality, her boy was in there. And he loved her, and he loved ramen. And those two facts were the anchors that kept him tethered to this world. Graduation day. The test was simple. Perform 3 basic jutsu: transformation, substitution, clone. Naruto walked to the front of the room. Iruka held his clipboard. The class watched, some with curiosity, some with thinly disguised fear. Sasuke with calculated intensity. Whenever you're ready, Naruto. Naruto looked at Iruka, then at the class, then at the ceiling, then back at Iruka. Can I just get the headband? You need to demonstrate the 3 required jutsu first. Naruto sighed. It was the most put-upon sigh in the history of sighing. It was the sigh of a being who had once judged whether entire civilizations were worthy of continued existence and was now being asked to do a card trick. He held up one hand. 3 things happened simultaneously. A perfect transformation. He turned into an exact copy of the first Hokage, so accurate that the wooden desk sprouted a small branch. A substitution, so fast that Iruka's eyes couldn't track it. One moment, Naruto was at the front. The next, he was sitting in Iruka's chair, feet on the desk. And shadow clones. Not 3, not 10, not 100, 1,000. 1,000 perfect shadow clones filled the classroom, the hallway, spilled out the windows, stood on the roof, lined the academy courtyard. 1,000 Narutos, all with the same half-lidded expression, all radiating that same ambient pressure. The collective weight of 1,000 divine touch clones made the building groan. One of the clones looked at Iruka and held out its hand. Headband! Please! Iruka handed it over. His hand was steady. His soul was not. Naruto tied the headband around his forehead, dissolved the clones, and walked out of the academy without waiting for anyone else's results. He went straight to Ichiraku Ramen. The usual, he said, sitting on his favorite stool. Graduating today? Tochi asked, already boiling noodles. Apparently. Congratulations. Thank you. Extra pork. Tochi added extra pork. Ayame, his daughter, leaned on the counter and watched Naruto eat. She'd been watching him eat here since he was tiny. He was their best customer, their most consistent customer, and the only customer who had ever made the broth ripple just by sitting down. You're going to be a great ninja, she said. Naruto looked up from his bowl, purple eyes, cat-like. For just a moment, something flickered behind them, amusement, warmth, something almost human. I'm going to be adequate, he said. The ramen is great, Ayame smiled. Tochi smiled. Naruto went back to his noodles. The Hokage's son had graduated. The village celebrated. Naruto didn't notice. The ramen required his full attention. Team assignments happened the following week. Minato, as Hokage, had deliberated over this longer than any other administrative decision in his career, including trade treaties with hostile nations, including border disputes, including the time he had to decide whether to allow cats as official summons. The problem was simple. Who do you put on a team with a god? The answer, he decided, was people who might survive the experience. Team 7, Iruka announced, reading from the list. Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno. Jonin instructor, Kakashi Hatake. Sasuke's eye twitched. He had spent the entire academy period avoiding the blonde, studying him from a distance, trying to quantify the feeling he got when those purple eyes swept the room. He had not succeeded. Being assigned to the same team felt less like an opportunity and more like being chained to a natural disaster. Sakura was conflicted. On one hand, she was on a team with Sasuke. On the other hand, she was on a team with the boy who made her head hurt when she looked at him too long. Naruto was asleep. Naruto, Iruka said. No response. Naruto, one eye opened. Did you say my name or was that the wind? You're on Team 7 with Sasuke and Sakura. Naruto looked at Sasuke, looked at Sakura, looked at the ceiling. Do any of them know where to get good ramen? That's not relevant to. It's the most relevant thing in the world. He closed his eye. Wake me when the instructor arrives. Kakashi Hatake arrived 3 hours late. This was normal for Kakashi. What was not normal was the sensation he felt walking into the room, a thickness in the air, a gravity that had nothing to do with physics, a quiet, constant pressure that made his Sharingan eye throb behind its cover. He opened the door. Sasuke sat by the window, arms crossed, brooding. Sakura sat in the middle, nervously fidgeting. Naruto was asleep at the back, head on the desk. Blonde hair splayed everywhere. Kakashi's visible eye studied the sleeping boy. Minato had given him a thick file. Kakashi had read it twice and believed about 40% of it, because the other 60% sounded like the kind of thing you'd read in a mythology textbook, not an academy student's performance record. "Yo," Kakashi said, raising one hand. "First impressions? I hate all of you." "We hate you too," Naruto said from the back, eyes still closed. "You're late and you smell like dog." Kakashi blinked. "That's my ninkin. I have summoning dogs. Get better cologne." Sakura looked like she wanted to disappear. Sasuke's mouth twitched. It might have been the beginning of a smile, but he killed it immediately. "Right," Kakashi said. "Tomorrow, training ground 7, 5 a.m. Don't eat breakfast." "I'm eating breakfast," Naruto said. "The exercise works better on an empty. I am eating breakfast." Kakashi looked at those purple eyes, now open, now fixed on him with a flat intensity that reminded him, inexplicably, of the time he'd stared down the Nine Tails during the attack 12 years ago. "Fine," Kakashi said. "Eat breakfast." He'd chosen his battles. That was the smart one to lose. Training ground 7, 5 a.m. The sun wasn't fully up yet. Mist clung to the grass. 3 wooden posts stood in the center of the field. A memorial stone glinted in the early light. Kakashi stood with 2 bells hanging from his belt. Sasuke had arrived at 4:45, Sakura at 4:55. Both looked alert, focused, ready. Naruto arrived at 5:02. He was carrying a bowl of ramen, still eating. Chopsticks moving with the mechanical precision of someone who took noodle consumption more seriously than combat. "You're late," Kakashi said. The noodles needed another minute. Naruto slurped the last of the broth, set the bowl on a tree stump with genuine care, and turned around. "What are we doing?" Kakashi held up the bells. 2 bells, 3 students. Whoever doesn't get a bell fails and goes back to the academy. You have until noon. Come at me with the intent to kill." "Intent to kill?" Naruto repeated. "Yes. You sure about that?" Something about the way he said it made Kakashi's spine go cold. Not cold like a breeze. Cold like standing at the edge of a frozen abyss and hearing something move in the dark below. "I'm sure," Kakashi said, because he was a professional and he did not flinch. "Your funeral," Naruto said. He walked to the middle training post and sat down against it. "Sasuke, Sakura, go first. I'll watch." Sasuke bristled. "I don't need you to." "You're right. You don't need me. Go show the man with the dog smell what you can do." Sasuke ground his teeth, but he went. He launched at Kakashi with everything he had. Speed, precision, the fire style, fireball jutsu, the Uchiha taijutsu combinations that were drilled into him from birth. He was good. Genuinely good. Top of the class good. Kakashi handled him with one hand, literally. He read his Icha book with the other. Sasuke ended up buried neck deep in the ground. After a well-timed earth-style headhunter technique, Sakura tried next. She had textbook technique and absolutely no answer for a jonin who could substitute out of anything and move 3 times her speed. She ended up in a genjutsu that made her think Sasuke was dying, and she screamed and fainted. Kakashi looked at Naruto. Naruto looked at Kakashi. "Your turn?" Kakashi suggested. Naruto yawned. He stood up. He stretched. His joints popped. He rolled his neck. "I could be eating right now," he said, and then Kakashi attacked, full speed. No hesitation, jonin-level combat velocity. He'd read the file. He wanted to see it for himself. He came in high with a sweeping kick. Naruto's body moved, not his mind. His body. His eyes were still half closed. His posture was still lazy, but his torso leaned back at an angle that should have been impossible, and Kakashi's kick cut air above his face. Ultra instinct. Partial. Kakashi spun into a follow-up. Right cross, left hook, knee strike, elbow combination. A sequence designed to overwhelm Genin-level reflexes and most Chunin-level ones too. He was moving at full combat speed now. Icha book forgotten, both hands engaged. Naruto dodged everything. Every single strike. Without looking. Without effort. His body flowed around Kakashi's attacks like smoke in a breeze. His hands were in his pockets. His eyes were half closed. He looked like he was taking a walk and the wind was mildly inconvenient. Kakashi went faster. He dropped the testing mentality and fought like he was facing an enemy. Sharingan Eye uncovered now, the spinning tomoe tracking every micro-movement, predicting, calculating. The Sharingan showed him something that made his blood freeze. Naruto wasn't reacting to his attacks. Naruto's body was moving before the attacks happened. Not predicting. simply operating on a level of combat awareness that the Sharingan couldn't map because it existed outside the framework of shinobi combat entirely. Kakashi threw everything. Lightning speed combinations, feints within feints, angles that should have cut off every escape route. Naruto didn't get hit, not once, not even close. Then Naruto seemed to decide he'd been patient enough. He opened his eyes fully. Those violet, cat-like irises focused on Kakashi for the first time. Kakashi felt like he'd been dropped into an ocean. Naruto raised one finger. Finger beam. A thin violet beam, pencil thin, blazing with an energy that wasn't chakra, shot from Naruto's fingertip. It crossed the distance between them in a fraction of a second and passed exactly 1 millimeter to the left of Kakashi's heart. He felt the heat of it kiss his skin through his flak jacket. It burned a perfect circle through the back of his vest and hit the tree behind him, boring a hole through 3 feet of solid oak. Kakashi didn't move, couldn't move. His body had locked up, not from a jutsu, from recognition. The animal part of his brain, the part that had kept him alive through wars and assassinations and encounters with things that should not exist, was screaming at him, "You are prey." "I missed on purpose," Naruto said. In case you were wondering, he was wondering. The answer did not make him feel better. Naruto extended his hand, palm up, his fingers twitched. Psychokinesis. The 2 bells on Kakashi's belt shuddered, then ripped free. Not cut, ripped by an invisible force. They floated through the air, spinning lazily, and settled into Naruto's palm. He looked at them, closed his fist around them, tossed one to Sasuke, who had dug himself out and was watching with wide eyes, and one to Sakura, who had woken up from the genjutsu and was watching with wider eyes. "We pass," Naruto said. "Now take me to lunch. You're paying. You owe me for wasting my morning." Kakashi stood very still. The Sharingan was still exposed, still spinning, still trying to process what it had recorded. It couldn't. The eye that had copied 1,000 jutsu, that had analyzed S-rank techniques and Kage-level combat, was showing him data that didn't fit any model. The energy Naruto had used wasn't chakra. The movement pattern didn't match any taijutsu school in existence. The beam had no elemental affinity, no hand signs, no visible gathering phase. Kakashi covered his Sharingan. Slowly. "Lunch," he said, "because what else do you say when a 12-year-old just demonstrated abilities that would give a Kage nightmares?" "Sure, lunch sounds good." That evening, Kakashi went to Minato's office. He sat down in the chair across from the Hokage's desk and stared at the wall for a long time. "He's not a genin," Kakashi said finally. "No," Minato agreed. "He's not a shinobi. Debatable. He's not human." Minato was quiet for a moment. "He's my son." "With respect, Sensei, your son just shot a beam of purple energy from his finger that would have killed me instantly if he hadn't chosen to miss by a millimeter. Your son dodged my full-speed Sharingan-assisted taijutsu without trying. Your son used telekinesis. Telekinesis is not a thing. It does not exist in any scroll, any archive, any record of shinobi combat. It is not a jutsu. It is not possible." And yet, Kakashi rubbed his face. "What am I supposed to do with him? Keep him on the team, give him missions, try to keep him fed. He gets cranky when he's hungry." "Cranky? What happens when he's cranky?" "The ambient pressure he generates increases. Last time he missed lunch, 3 birds fell out of the sky near the house." Kakashi absorbed this information. Then he stood up. "I'm requesting a raise," he said. "Denied." "I expected that." He walked out. Kakashi Hatake, the copy ninja, the man who had faced the most dangerous threats in the shinobi world with calm precision, went home, sat on his bed, and stared at his ceiling until dawn. His new student was a god in a 12-year-old's body, and he was supposed to teach him. Sure, no problem. Team 7 took missions. D ranks. The lowest tier. Painting fences, catching cats, weeding gardens. Normal genin work. Naruto treated every D-rank mission with the same energy. A lion treats a nature documentary about mice. Mild acknowledgement that it was happening. Zero personal investment. "Naruto, the cat's getting away!" Sakura shouted during the infamous Tora retrieval. Naruto raised his hand without turning around. Psychokinesis. The cat froze mid-sprint, lifted off the ground, and floated back into Naruto's arms. It struggled for exactly half a second before looking into his purple eyes and going completely limp. Not unconscious, surrendered. The demon cat that had terrorized genin teams for years submitted to Naruto on contact. "How did you?" Sakura started. It recognizes a predator, Naruto said, petting the cat. The cat was purring, aggressively, desperately. Smart animal. When they returned Tora to the Fire Daimyo's wife, the woman tried to crush the cat in a hug as usual. Tora looked at Naruto with pleading eyes. Naruto looked at Tora. "You're on your own," he said. The cat's expression of betrayal was almost human. Sasuke, throughout these missions, watched Naruto constantly, studied him. The last Uchiha was driven by one thing, the need for power to kill his brother Itachi. And here was someone on his team who wielded power so casually it was almost offensive. Every day, Sasuke calculated. Every day, the same conclusion. The gap between himself and Naruto wasn't a gap. It was an ocean, a dimension, an equation where one side had numbers and the other side had infinity. He never said anything about it, but the grinding of his teeth was audible. Sakura adjusted faster than expected. She was smart. She recognized that Naruto wasn't someone she needed to compete with. He existed on a different playing field, a different sport, a different reality. She focused on improving herself and stayed out of his way. Smart girl, that's Sakura. But Naruto was restless. D ranks weren't just boring to him. They were an insult to something deep inside him, something that remembered judging civilizations and deciding their fates. He needed more, and more was about to arrive. The mission to the Land of Waves started with a lie and ended with the complete recalibration of how the shinobi world understood power. Tazuna, the bridge builder, had requested protection for a C-rank escort mission. Standard stuff. Bandits, maybe a few thugs. Nothing that required more than a Genin team and a Jonin supervisor. The first sign that things were different was 20 miles outside Konoha. Two figures rose from a puddle in the road, the Demon Brothers, Gozu and Meizu. Chunin-level missing nin from Kirigakure with poison chain weapons and a hunger for blood. They lunged at Kakashi first. The chain wrapped around his body and ripped. Kakashi exploded into a log. Substitution. Textbook. The brothers pivoted to the Genin. Meizu went for Sakura and Tazuna. Gozu went for Naruto. Gozu was fast. Chunin fast. His chain whipped forward, whistling, poison gleaming on the links. Naruto was standing in the road with his hands in his pockets. He watched the chain come, watched the poison glint in the sunlight, watched the missing nin's grinning face behind the metal gauntlet. He yawned. The chain hit the space where his head had been. Ultra instinct moved him without conscious thought. A lean, nothing more, and the chain sailed past. Gozu snarled and retracted the chain for another strike. Naruto was already behind him. Not through speed that anyone could track. He was simply there. He placed one finger on Gozu's spine. Pressure point attack. Gozu's body went rigid. Every muscle locked. He toppled forward like a felled tree, face first into the dirt, completely conscious but unable to move a single voluntary muscle. Meizu saw his brother drop and hesitated. That was his mistake. He hesitated near Naruto, and being near Naruto meant being within range of the ambient pressure. Paralysis. Meizu froze, mid-step, mid-breath, locked in place by an invisible weight that pressed on every atom of his being. Two Chunin-level missing nin. Neutralized in 4 seconds. Without a single bead of sweat, Naruto walked past them toward Tazuna. You lied about the mission rank. There are people trying to kill you who are above bandit level. He tilted his head. Is the food in Wave Country any good? Tazuna, trembling, could barely get words out. There's a ramen place near the harbor. We continue the mission. Kakashi, who had watched from the trees, made no objection. What was the point? His student had handled 2 missing 9 faster than he would have. He made a mental note. Adjust expectations, permanently upward. The Land of Waves was a country drowning in misery. Gato, the shipping magnate, the criminal kingpin, had strangled the economy, killed hope, and turned an entire island into his personal piggy bank. The people were thin, scared, and beaten down. Naruto walked through the main village and frowned. Not at the people, at the food stalls. Empty. Closed. The ramen place Tazuna had mentioned had been shut down for months. There's no ramen, Naruto said. His voice was flat, but something in it shifted. Something that made the air heavier. Kakashi recognized it. Anger. Not human anger. Something deeper. Gato closed most of the food places, Tazuna explained. Miserable. He controls all the supply routes. People can barely afford rice, let alone, I see. 2 words. That's all Naruto said. But the way he said them carried the weight of a verdict. A being who had once decided the fate of planets had just looked at the situation in Wave Country, evaluated it, and passed judgment. Gato had closed the ramen shops. Gato had made an enemy he was cosmically unequipped to handle. The bridge. Dawn. The mist rolled in thick and white, blanketing the half-finished structure like a funeral shroud. Tazuna and his workers had been building, despite the threats, despite the fear, because Tazuna was the kind of man who didn't know how to quit, even when quitting was the sane option. Team 7 stood guard, Kakashi at the front, Sasuke and Sakura flanking Tazuna, Naruto at the rear leaning against a support beam, arms crossed, eyes closed. The mist thickened and thickened and thickened. It wasn't natural. Kakashi knew it immediately. This was the hiding in mist jutsu, the signature technique of one man. Well. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, deep, gravelly, amused. The copy ninja, Kakashi of the Sharingan, and 3 little baby Genin, Gato's paying me good money for the old man's head. Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the hidden mist, A-rank missing nin, former member of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, wielder of the executioner's blade, a sword as tall as a man designed for one purpose, separating heads from bodies. He materialized from the mist like a nightmare taking form. Bare-chested, bandages around his face, the massive sword resting on his shoulder. Behind him, a smaller figure, masked, silent, radiating cold, Haku, the ice user. The weapon Zabuza had forged from a broken child. Zabuza's killing intent rolled outward. It was legendary. It was the kind of pressure that made Chunin faint and Genin lose control of their bladders. It filled the bridge like a physical weight, pressing down on everyone. Sakura's knees buckled. Sasuke's hand trembled on his kunai. Tazuna went white. Kakashi uncovered his Sharingan. Zabuza Momochi. I expected they'd send someone serious. Serious? Zabuza grinned behind his bandages. I'm going to cut through your students like warm butter and... This mist is annoying. Everyone stopped. The voice came from the back of the group. Flat, bored, aristocratic. Naruto opened his eyes. He peeled himself off the support beam. He looked at the mist with the expression of someone who had just been served lukewarm soup. It's damp, he continued, and cold, and I can't see my feet. I don't like not seeing my feet. Zabuza squinted through the mist at the blonde kid. The hell? Sit down, brat. The adults are. Wrath of the god of destruction. Naruto didn't shout it. He didn't scream it. He announced it the way someone announces dinner is ready. Casually, informatively. The result was not casual. A shockwave of purple ki, visible, blazing, pulsing with divine energy, erupted from Naruto's body in every direction. It moved at the speed of violence. The mist didn't part. It evaporated. Every water molecule in the entire technique was destroyed at the atomic level. The surface of the sea below the bridge shattered. Not splashed, shattered. Like the water had been hit so hard it forgot how to be liquid for a moment. The trees on both banks of the river, the massive ancient trees that had stood for centuries, splintered and fell. Every direction. For 200 meters. The bridge shook, cracked spiderweb through the stone. Sakura was thrown backward. Sasuke planted his feet and skidded. Kakashi braced behind his arms. Tazuna was caught by Kakashi's shadow clone. And Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the mist, the man whose killing intent made soldiers surrender. He was standing in the open now, no mist, no cover, his sword planted in the ground for stability, and his eyes were wide. Not with anger, not with calculation, with terror, because Zabuza was a censor in his own crude way. He could feel killing intent. He could gauge power levels through pressure. And what he was feeling from this child, this 12-year-old blonde kid, was not shinobi power. It was not Biju power. It was something so far above anything in his experience that his brain couldn't process it. It was like measuring an ocean with a teaspoon. What? Zabuza's voice cracked. What the hell are you? Naruto tilted his head, bored. He moved. Not ran, not flickered. He simply existed in one spot and then existed in front of Zabuza. No transition, no movement that could be tracked. Leg scissors throw. Naruto's body twisted. Legs wrapping around Zabuza's torso with a speed and strength that shouldn't exist in a body that small, and slammed the demon of the mist into the bridge. The stone didn't just crack, it cratered. A 5-foot depression, radiating fractures, with Zabuza at the center, his back broken against the bedrock, the executioner's blade clattering away. Zabuza coughed blood through his bandages. His eyes were glazed. One hit, one single physical technique, and the demon of the mist was done. The man who had attempted a coup against the Mizukage, who had cut his way through an entire graduating class, who was feared across the shinobi world, one hit. Haku acted on instinct. The masked boy leaped into action, hands blurring through seals, demonic mirroring ice crystals. Mirrors of ice formed in a dome around Naruto. 21 mirrors, crystalline and flawless, each one a portal that let Haku move at light speed between them, attacking from every angle simultaneously. It was Haku's trump card, the technique that had never been defeated, the technique that turned the battlefield into a killing box. Naruto stood in the center of the ice dome. He looked around at the mirrors, at the reflections of Haku appearing and disappearing, at the needles already in flight coming from every direction. Sparkly, he said, but fragile. Energy of destruction, barrier. A coat of purple energy wrapped around Naruto's body like a second skin, not chakra. Destruction energy, the fundamental force of ending things. The needles hit the barrier. They didn't bounce, they didn't deflect. They turned to ash, every single one. Mid-flight, the moment they made contact with the barrier, the senbon simply stopped existing. Haku's eyes widened behind the mask. He threw more, faster from more angles. From every mirror simultaneously, ash, ash, ash. Nothing touched Naruto. Nothing could touch Naruto. The barrier didn't discriminate, it destroyed everything equally. Haku stopped. He stood in one mirror, breathing hard, mask hiding an expression of dawning horror. "What jutsu is that?" he whispered. "What are you?" Naruto looked up at him. Those purple eyes were for just a moment almost gentle. "You're loyal," Naruto said. "I can smell it. You fight for someone. That's not nothing." A flicker of something ancient crossed his face. Recognition, memory. A tall, purple-skinned attendant standing beside him through eons. Then it passed. "But your mirrors are in my way." Naruto raised his hand. Palm open. Kiai. The invisible shockwave hit the ice dome. It didn't melt. It didn't crack. It exploded. Every mirror detonated simultaneously. Shards of ice vaporized before they could hit the ground. The technique that had never been defeated was erased from existence in a single pulse of godly pressure. Haku was launched from the destroyed dome. He hit the bridge railing, cracked it, and slid to the ground, his mask broke in half. The face beneath was young, beautiful, terrified. "I yield," Haku said quietly. Naruto looked at him for a long moment. "Take your master. Leave. If the ramen shops in this country open again within a week, I'll consider us even." Haku blinked. "Ramen shops? The demon in the mist can wait. I want noodles." Haku, against all logic, almost laughed. The absurdity of it. This godchild, this destroyer of techniques, standing on a ruined bridge surrounded by shattered ice and cratered stone, and his priority was noodles. Haku grabbed at Zabuza, still barely conscious, still bleeding, and retreated. They vanished into the tree line. And then Gato arrived. Because of course he did. Gato's timing was as terrible as his morals. He rolled up on the far end of the bridge with 200 mercenaries. Thugs, ronin, hired swords from every corner of the black market. He'd been watching from a distance, waiting for the ninja to exhaust themselves so he could mop up the survivors cheaply. He stepped to the front, short and smug, adjusting his sunglasses. Well, looks like the ninja did the work for me. Now I don't have to pay Zabuza or the bridge builder. Boys, kill everyone." The mercenary army roared and charged. Naruto turned to look at them. 200 men, swords raised, screaming, running. He looked at them the way someone looks at a puddle on the sidewalk. An inconvenience, a minor obstacle between himself and the moment Tazuna's bridge was finished and the ramen shops could reopen. He raised one palm. Atomic bomb, god of destruction. The blast erupted from his hand, a concentrated sphere of Hakai energy that crossed the bridge in an instant and detonated in the center of the mercenary army. The explosion was violet. The light was so intense that people on the mainland saw it, miles away. The sound was not a boom, it was an absence, a void, like reality had held its breath. When the light faded, the mercenaries were gone. Not dead, not scattered, gone, every single one of them. The bridge where they'd been standing was smooth, scoured clean down to the original stone. Every drop of blood, every weapon, every boot print erased at the molecular level. 200 men, removed from existence. In one attack, Gato stood alone at the edge of the crater. His sunglasses had melted. His suit was singed. His mercenaries were ash that didn't even have the decency to remain as ash. What? You? Gado's mouth moved. Words didn't come. Naruto appeared in front of him. Not walked. Appeared. You closed the ramen shops, Naruto said. I what? Ramen? You strangled this country's economy. People are starving. The food stalls are closed. Purple eyes narrowed. A place without food is a place without purpose. I have money. I'll pay. Whatever you want. I want two things. Naruto held up two fingers. 1, you will fund the completion of this bridge. 2, every ramen shop in Wave Country will reopen by the end of the week, fully stocked, your expense. If I come back and the noodles are anything less than excellent, I will find you. And what I did to your army will look like a gentle suggestion compared to what I do to you. Blink if you understand. Gado blinked so fast his eyelids blurred. Naruto patted him on the head. Good businessman. He turned and walked back to Team 7. Kakashi was standing with his Sharingan exposed, staring at the scoured bridge, at the empty space where 200 men had been moments ago. His brain was processing, failing, rebooting, failing again. Kakashi said, erase them. Sasuke finished. His voice was hoarse. His Sharingan, newly awakened, activated by the sheer survival pressure of being near Naruto's attacks, was spinning. He had seen the whole thing. His lace eyes had recorded it, but seeing and understanding were different things. They're gone, Sakura whispered. She was looking at the empty bridge. No bodies, no blood, no evidence that 200 human beings had been standing there 10 seconds ago. They're just gone. Tazuna sat down on the ground. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The bridge builder who had risked everything to save his country had just watched a 12-year-old erase an army with a wave of his hand. Language didn't cover it. Naruto walked past all of them. He paused next to Kakashi. The mission's done. Bridge will be finished. Ramen shops are reopening. He glanced at the sky. I'm hungry. Let's go home. Kakashi looked at his student, at the boy, the god, who had just casually demonstrated the ability to annihilate 200 people and was now thinking about lunch. I need to file a mission report, Kakashi said faintly. File it from the ramen stand. They went home. The bridge was completed within the week. Gado, true to his terrorized word, funded everything. The ramen shops reopened. The country recovered. They named the bridge after Naruto. He didn't care, but he did come back 2 months later to check the ramen. It was acceptable. He gave it a 7 out of 10. Tazuna considered that rating the highest honor of his life, the Chunin exams, the event that every genin in the 5 great nations looked forward to as their first real test. The tournament that separated children from soldiers, the arena where careers were made and legends were born. For Naruto, it was an interruption to his napping schedule. Chunin exams? He was lying on the grass in Training Ground 7, arms behind his head watching clouds. It's a chance to advance in rank, Kakashi explained. Show your skills, represent the village. I represented the village when I erased Gado's army. Do I have to do it again? There will be food stalls at the tournament. Naruto sat up. What kind? Every kind. It's a major international event. Vendors come from all 5 nations, including ramen, multiple ramen vendors. I'm in. Sakura shook her head. Sasuke said nothing. He had spent the weeks since Wave in a state of quiet, intense focus that bordered on obsession. Not with hatred, not with revenge, with Naruto. He trained harder than ever, pushing his limits, chasing something he couldn't articulate. Not to surpass Naruto, even Sasuke's pride couldn't sustain that delusion after Wave. But to understand, to get close enough to see the shape of that power, even from a distance. The Chunin exams were structured in 3 phases, a written exam, the Forest of Death, and one-on-one tournament fights. Each phase was designed to test a different aspect of a shinobi's capabilities. None of them were designed for a god. Phase 1, the written exam, the examination room, rows of desks, genin from every village, sand, mist, cloud, stone, sound, and every minor nation in between. The room buzzed with nervous energy, tension, killing intent. Ibiki Morino stood at the front, the head of Konoha's torture and interrogation division, a man whose face was a roadmap of scars, whose presence alone made seasoned Chunin sweat. This is a written exam, Ibiki announced. 10 questions. You have 1 hour. If you're caught cheating 3 times, you and your entire team are disqualified. The trick, of course, was that the questions were impossibly hard. too hard for Jinin. The real test was the ability to cheat without getting caught, intelligence gathering under pressure. The 10th question was a psychological trap designed to make cowards quit. Naruto sat down. He looked at the exam paper. He looked at the ceiling. He looked at the exam paper again. Then he picked up his pencil. He wrote for 4 minutes. Then he put his pencil down, flipped his paper over, folded his arms on the desk, and went to sleep. Ibiki watched this from the front of the room. When the hour was up, he collected the exams. He got to Naruto's paper and stopped. Every answer was correct. Not just correct, perfect. The kind of correct that made Ibiki's eye twitch. Because question 6 was a tactical scenario that pulled from a classified S-rank mission debrief. And Naruto had not only solved it, but added a footnote that read, "Your scenario assumes a 2-dimensional battlefield. Accounting for aerial assault vectors and subterranean ambush potential, the optimal solution is simpler than presented. Also, question 8 has a typo." Ibiki checked question 8. It had a typo. He stared at the sleeping blonde for a long time. Then he stamped the paper passed and moved on. The 10th question came. Ibiki delivered his speech about how failing meant you could never retake the Chunin exams again. How raising your hand to quit protected your teammates but condemned your ambitions. How this was the moment that separated real shinobi from pretenders. Genin raised their hands. Teams left. The room thinned. Naruto did not raise his hand. Naruto was asleep. He had been asleep for the entire psychological warfare portion of the exam. He snored once. Loudly, several genin who had been considering quitting looked at the sleeping kid and felt a strange mix of irritation and inspiration. If this guy didn't care enough to be scared, maybe they shouldn't either. "Those of you still here," Ibiki announced. "Pass." Naruto snored again. Ibiki looked at him. "Someone wake up the blonde kid." Sakura poked Naruto. "We passed." One eye opened. "Passed what?" "The exam." "There was an exam?" He sat up, stretched, and looked around. "Where's the ramen?" Phase 2, the Forest of Death, Training Ground 44. A massive fenced-off woodland filled with giant insects, mutant animals, poisonous plants, and enough danger to make seasoned shinobi think twice. Teams entered from different gates with one scroll each, Earth or Heaven, and had to collect the matching scroll from another team to qualify. 5 days, no rules, survival of the strongest. Anko Mitarashi, the proctor, gave her speech at the entrance. She threw a kunai at Naruto, a standard intimidation move. The kunai stopped in midair, 3 inches from his face, held by invisible force. "Psychokinesis," Naruto muttered, barely awake. The kunai floated back to Anko and hovered in front of her nose. "Don't do that again." Anko's mouth opened, closed. She took her kunai back and decided not to test the purple-eyed kid again. Team 7 entered the forest. The first team they encountered, a group from Rain, took one look at Naruto's eyes, felt the ambient pressure, and threw their scroll at Sakura's feet before sprinting in the opposite direction. No words exchanged, just pure, instinctive self-preservation. "That was easy," Sakura said, picking up the scroll. "Too easy," Sasuke muttered. Naruto was already walking toward the tower at the center of the forest. "Let's go. The faster we finish, the faster I eat." They were halfway there when the air changed, not the ambient pressure that Naruto generated. Something else, something oily, something that slithered across the senses and left a residue, something that smelled like snakes and old blood and forbidden jutsu. Orochimaru of the Sannin had arrived. He dropped from the trees like a nightmare uncoiling. Pale skin, golden snake eyes, that tongue, too long, too flexible, too wrong. He wore a Sound Village disguise that he discarded immediately. He wasn't here for subtlety. He was here for Sasuke, the last Sharingan, the perfect vessel for his body transfer jutsu. My, Orochimaru said, eyes fixed on Sasuke. "Such delicious potential. I can practically taste the—" "You smell bad." Orochimaru paused. He looked at the blonde who had spoken, at the violet eyes, at the absolute absence of fear in those eyes. "Excuse me? You smell like a snake that died, rotted, came back, and died again. It's offensive." Naruto wrinkled his nose. "I have a sensitive palate. Bad smells ruin my appetite." Orochimaru tilted his head. His tongue slithered out, tasting the air, and froze. Because what he tasted, the energy signature emanating from this child, was wrong. It was wrong the way an earthquake is wrong for a fish. It didn't belong. It existed on a frequency that Orochimaru's considerable sensory abilities could detect but not categorize. In his long life, across all his forbidden experiments and stolen bodies and accumulated knowledge, Orochimaru had never encountered anything like it. Interesting, Orochimaru breathed. What are you, boy? Hungry. Get out of my way, Orochimaru smiled. It was the smile of a scientist encountering a new specimen. I don't think so. Not before I test. He summoned Manda, the king of snakes, a serpent so massive it cast a shadow over the entire clearing, its body coiling around trees and crushing them like toothpicks, purple scales, fangs dripping venom, eyes gleaming with ancient hunger. Orochimaru, you promised me sacrifices. This better be. Manda stopped. The giant snake, the king of serpents, the summoned creature that required human sacrifices as payment, looked at Naruto, and Naruto looked at Manda. The snake twitched. Its massive body shuddered. Every instinct encoded in millions of years of serpent evolution screamed the same thing the Nine Tails had felt 12 years ago, but Orochimaru didn't give it a chance to flee. Attack! The Sannin commanded. Manda lunged. 100 tons of snake, moving at incredible speed, mouth wide enough to swallow buildings. Naruto floated upward, casually, without hand signs, without visible effort, without any mechanism that made sense in the framework of shinobi physics. He just rose, up, until he was eye level with the giant snake. I despise snakes, he said, god of destruction's rampage. He vanished, not moved, vanished. And then he was everywhere. His body became a streak of violet light, moving so fast that even Orochimaru's snake-enhanced senses couldn't track it. Fists wreathed in Hakai energy struck Manda, not once, not twice, but dozens of times in the span of a single heartbeat. Each hit carried the weight of destruction itself. Each impact released a burst of purple energy that disintegrated whatever it touched. Manda didn't have time to scream. The king of serpents, a creature that had existed for centuries, that had been summoned by the greatest snake users in history, was obliterated mid-coil. Each strike erased a section of its body. Head, neck, body, tail, gone, 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 not killed. Removed from reality, Naruto landed on a tree branch. Purple energy still flickered around his fists. Below him, where a 100-foot snake had been coiling, there was nothing. Not even blood, not even scales, nothing. Silence. Absolute cosmic silence. Orochimaru stared at the empty space where his strongest summon had been. His golden eyes were wide. His tongue had retracted. For the first time in decades, no, perhaps for the first time in his entire unnatural life, Orochimaru felt genuine, animal fear. Not the strategic caution he felt against other Sannin. Not the calculated wariness he had for the Hokage or Akatsuki. This was primal. This was the fear of a predator suddenly discovering that it was not at the top of the food chain. That it never had been. You. Orochimaru's voice was barely a whisper. What did you just... Naruto appeared in front of him. Orochimaru, to his credit, reacted. He was a Sannin. His reflexes were honed by decades of combat. He struck, a snake-style lunge aimed at Naruto's neck, channeling his curse mark technique through his fangs, his signature move. The move that had enslaved and corrupted dozens of powerful shinobi. Naruto let him get close. The fangs were an inch from his neck. Orochimaru tasted victory for exactly 1/10 of a second. Then Naruto raised one finger. Pressure point attack. A single tap. Index finger to the center of Orochimaru's neck. That's all. A tap. The kind of motion you'd use to get someone's attention. Orochimaru's body shut down. Every neural pathway, every chakra circuit, every nerve cluster, simultaneously and completely disabled. The Sannin's eyes rolled back. His body went limp. He dropped like his strings had been cut. The immortality-seeking, body-hopping, legendary Sannin hit the forest floor with a thud that was almost anticlimactic. Naruto looked down at the unconscious Snake Man. He tilted his head. If you wake up, bring better food. Sasuke had watched the entire thing. Every second, his Sharingan was blazing, the two Tomoe spinning so fast they blurred. His brain was recording, analyzing, trying to find any framework that could explain what he'd just seen. A Sannin, one of the three legendary ninja. The man who had terrorized nations, dropped in seconds by a 12-year-old who looked annoyed about the interruption to his meal schedule. He's insane, Sakura breathed. He's beyond insane, Sasuke said quietly. He's beyond everything. Team 7 reached the tower in 3 hours. A new record. The previous record was 3 days. Phase 3 started with preliminary matches. Too many teams had passed. The number needed to be trimmed before the finals. One-on-one fights drawn randomly in an arena within the tower. The proctor announced the matchups. Genin from every village stepped forward, ready to prove themselves. Naruto's first opponent was a sound ninja named Dosu. Dosu had a device on his arm that manipulated sound waves, a clever tool that could disorient, deafen, and kill through resonance attacks that bypass conventional defenses. Begin, the proctor called. Dosu activated his melody arm. The sound waves rippled outward, invisible, to shatter Naruto's eardrums and scramble his sense of balance. The waves hit Naruto. Nothing happened. Naruto stood with his hands in his pockets, purple eyes half closed. The sound waves, which should have been excruciating, which should have had him on his knees clutching his ears, washed over him like a gentle breeze. Dosu paled. That's impossible. My sound waves directly attack the inner. Ki. The invisible shockwave hit Dosu like a freight train. He flew backward, hit the arena wall, cracked it, and slid to the ground unconscious. The fight lasted 6 seconds. 4 of those were Dosu talking. The arena was silent. Hayate, the proctor, coughed nervously. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. In the viewing balcony, the assembled genin stared. Tamari of the Sand Village gripped the railing. What was that? There was no jutsu, no hand signs, no visible technique. He just pushed air? Kankuro swallowed hard. That's not air. I don't know what that is. Gaara stood behind his siblings. The one-tailed Jinchuriki, the boy who had never been wounded, whose sand protected him automatically. Gaara stared at Naruto with his pale green eyes and felt something he had never felt before. His sand was agitated. It moved around him in nervous patterns, erratic, defensive. His sand, which responded to threats, which had never failed to protect him, was reacting to Naruto's presence from across the room. It was afraid. Mother is. Quiet, Gaara whispered. The voice of Shikaku, the one-tailed beast sealed inside him, the voice that constantly demanded blood and death, had gone silent. Completely silent. For the first time in Gaara's entire life, the monster in his head had nothing to say, because the one tail, like the 9 tails, recognized what it was sensing, and it was not interested in drawing that thing's attention. The other matches proceeded normally. Sasuke fought impressively. Sakura held her own. The other genin displayed their skills. Lee showed his incredible taijutsu. Neji demonstrated the gentle fist. Shikamaru was clever. Kiba was fierce, normal, impressive, human. And then there was Naruto, who existed on a different plane entirely. Every time his name was called, his opponent went pale. The ambient pressure he generated, just by standing in the arena, just by opening his eyes and looking at someone, was enough to make seasoned genin question their life choices. His second preliminary match was against Kintsuchi, another sound ninja. She threw senbon with bells attached. A genjutsu-based technique. Naruto didn't even use a technique. He walked toward her. Just walked. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. With each step, the pressure increased. By step 4, Kin's hands were shaking too badly to throw. By step 5, her knees buckled. By step 6, she was on the ground, not unconscious but unable to move, pinned by an invisible weight that was simply Naruto existing too close. I forfeit, she gasped. Smart, Naruto said. He walked back to the balcony. The arena erupted in whispers. The Hokage, Minato, watching from the Kage box, rubbed his temples. Your son is terrifying, Hiruzen said from the seat beside him. He's efficient, Minato corrected. He's terrifying and efficient. The bracket was set. The finals would be held in 1 month in the main stadium before an audience of thousands and the assembled Kage of the great nations. The matches were announced. Naruto versus Neji Hyuga. Neji smiled coldly. He believed in fate. He believed that talent determined everything. He believed that the main branch of his clan had stolen his destiny. He believed that this blonde, lazy, ramen-obsessed child was fated to fall before the Hyuga's divine techniques. He was about to learn that fate was not even a concept to a god. Fate was a suggestion, and Naruto did not take suggestions. The month passed. Konoha prepared for the finals. Dignitaries arrived from every nation. The stadium was packed. Vendors sold food and drinks. Ramen stalls lined the streets. Naruto spent the entire month eating ramen and sleeping. He did not train. Kakashi suggested he might want to practice. Naruto asked if ramen was practice. Kakashi said no. Naruto told him he was wrong and went back to his noodles. The Raikage arrived with his entourage from the Cloud Village. Gaara's father, the Kazekage, or rather someone wearing the Kazekage's face, sat in the Kaji box. Minato noticed the deception immediately with his sensory abilities, but kept quiet, watching, calculating. Hiruzen stood guard beside him. The stadium was full. 20,000 people, nobles, samurai, merchants, shinobi from every nation. The energy was electric. Anticipation hummed like a living thing, and then the first match was called. Naruto Uzumaki versus Neji Hyuga. The crowd buzzed. They'd heard rumors. The Hokage's son. The boy who'd ended his preliminary matches in seconds. The kid with the purple eyes who made people feel something they couldn't describe. Naruto walked into the arena, hands in pockets, eyes half closed. He looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Specifically, he looked like he'd rather be at the ramen stand he'd passed on the way in. The one with the sign that said specialty tonkatsu, and the way he kept glancing toward the exit suggested he was calculating if he could eat a bowl between rounds. Neji entered from the other side. Composed, regal, veins bulging around his eyes, Byakugan already activated. He had spent the month training intensely, studying everything available about Naruto's fighting style, and had concluded that whatever tricks the Hokage's son had used in the preliminaries, the gentle fist would shut them down. Close the chakra points, seal the pathways. Technique didn't matter if you couldn't channel energy. Fate has already decided this match, Neji announced, loud enough for the stadium to hear. His voice carried the absolute conviction of someone who had built their entire worldview on a single idea and defended it with iron certainty. You may be the Hokage's son, but bloodline determines everything. The Hyuga clan's gentle fist is the ultimate taijutsu style. Your chakra points will be sealed. Your power will be cut off. This is destiny. The crowd murmured. Some nodded. Neji was a prodigy, the genius of the Hyuga. His logic seemed sound. Naruto yawned, not a polite yawn. A full, jaw-stretching, eye-watering, so bored his soul hurts yawn that echoed in the sudden silence of the stadium. Are you done? Naruto asked. I missed what you said. I was thinking about ramen. Neji's left eye twitched. I said fate has. Fate, got it? Shall we start? The proctor, Jinma, Senbon between his teeth, looked between them. Begin. Neji moved instantly. He was fast, genuinely fast. His gentle fist was precise, elegant, deadly. He crossed the distance between them in a blink and launched his attack. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. The assault was beautiful. There was no other word for it. Each strike targeted a specific tenketsu, the chakra points that controlled the flow of energy through the body. 2 palms, 4 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms, 32 palms, 64 palms. Each one connecting, each one precise, each one delivered with the calculated perfection of a technique practiced 10,000 times. Neji stepped back. His breathing was controlled. His form was flawless. He had landed every single strike on every targeted point. It's over, he said. Your chakra network is sealed. You cannot mold chakra. You cannot perform jutsu. You are. Naruto started laughing. Not a chuckle, not a smirk. Laughing. Full, genuine, head-thrown-back laughter that filled the stadium and made the walls vibrate. The sound wasn't just loud. It was layered. There was something underneath it. An echo. An ancient cosmic amusement that pressed on the audience like a physical weight. People in the stands grabbed their armrests. Shinobi in the crowd tensed. The Kage in the booth leaned forward. Neji froze. Not from a technique. From the sound. From the feeling of that laughter reaching into his chest and squeezing something fundamental. You think, Naruto said, wiping a tear from his eye, an actual tear of amusement, that you can seal a god with a poke? Silence. Absolute. 20,000 people and not one of them breathing. Naruto straightened up. The amusement faded. His purple eyes opened fully. Those cat-like pupils fixed on Neji, and for the first time in the match, for the first time in the entire Chunin exams, Naruto Uzumaki looked at an opponent and decided to show them something. Ki-ai. The arena exploded, not literally. The ground held, barely. But the invisible shockwave of pure godly pressure erupted from Naruto's body in every direction. The air itself screamed. Dust kicked up in a perfect circle. The arena floor cracked in radiating lines from where Naruto stood, and Neji flew. The Hyuga prodigy was blasted off his feet and across the arena like he'd been hit by a moving train. He hit the far wall hard enough to crater it. Stone fragments rained down. The impact was so violent that the spectators in the section directly behind the crater felt the wall buckle against their seats. The crowd gasped. 20,000 simultaneous intakes of breath. Neji pulled himself from the wall. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead. His ribs ached. His Byakugan was still active, and what it showed him made his blood run cold. Naruto's Tenketsu, the 64 points he had sealed, were open, all of them. Not forced open, not healed. They had never been closed. His strikes had connected with Naruto's body. His chakra had been injected into Naruto's system, but the chakra had been consumed, dissolved, like pouring water into a furnace, because underneath Naruto's normal chakra network, Neji could now see the other thing, the vast purple impossible thing that he'd only glimpsed once before at the academy through Hinata's terrified Byakugan. It was enormous. It was deeper than chakra. It was deeper than anything Neji had ever perceived or imagined perceiving. And it was looking at him, not Naruto. The energy itself, it was aware. Your gentle fist targets chakra points, Naruto said, walking toward Neji. Each step was slow, deliberate. The ground cracked under each footfall, not from weight, but from pressure. I don't run on chakra. Your technique is designed for a system I don't use. It's like trying to turn off the sun by blowing on it. Neji ground his teeth. Fear crawled up his spine, but pride, Hyuga pride, the only thing harder than their eyes, held him upright. He spun. 8 trigrams palm rotation. The defensive technique was perfect. A dome of spinning chakra that deflected everything. Weapons, jutsu, physical attacks. It was the main branch's ultimate defense, and Neji had taught himself through sheer genius and determination. It was beautiful. It was the pinnacle of his ability. It was the proof that fate could not be denied. Naruto watched the spinning dome of chakra. He tilted his head. He seemed to consider it the way an art critic considers a painting, acknowledging the craftsmanship while being ultimately unmoved. Then he raised one hand. Beerus Ball, sphere of destruction. A point of violet light appeared above Naruto's palm. Small at first, the size of a marble, then a baseball, then a basketball. Then it kept growing, and growing, and growing. The sphere rose above the stadium. It expanded, blazing violet, radiating a heat that had nothing to do with temperature and everything to do with the fundamental force of annihilation. It was the size of a house, then the size of a building. Then it stopped growing, hanging above the stadium, like a miniature sun, a perfect sphere of compressed divine destruction energy, humming with a sound that vibrated in the bones of every person in attendance. The stadium went silent. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that exists in the vacuum of space. 20,000 people stared upward at the violet sun and understood, at some deep, primal level, that they were looking at something that could unmake them. Hiruzen Sarutobi stood up in the Kaji box. His pipe fell from his mouth. The god of shinobi, the professor, the man who had mastered every jutsu in Konoha's arsenal, stood and stared at the sphere with an expression of naked, undisguised awe. Minato's hands gripped the railing. He knew his son was powerful. He had the file. He had the reports. But knowing and seeing were different things. Seeing it, seeing that sphere, feeling that energy, understanding at a cellular level that his 12-year-old son could erase the entire stadium with a thought was a different experience entirely. The Kazekage, Orochimaru in disguise, had stopped breathing. His golden snake eyes were wide behind the Kazekage's veil. The power he was sensing from that sphere was not shinobi power. It was not sage power. It was not tailed beast power. It was something that existed on a scale that made all 3 of those combined feel like a campfire next to a supernova. The Raikage, A, was on his feet. His lightning armor flickered to life involuntarily, a reflexive defense mechanism triggered by the proximity of a threat so massive his body responded before his mind could process it. In the arena, Neji's rotation had stopped. He stood beneath the violet sun, looking up, and every belief he had ever held about fate, about destiny, about the ceiling of human potential, crumbled. "I'll destroy the whole village if you don't surrender," Naruto said. Same tone he used to order ramen. Flat, casual, as if threatening the annihilation of a hidden village was no more significant than choosing between miso and tonkatsu. "You're bluffing," Neji whispered, but his voice shook. "I don't bluff. I'm a god. Gods don't bluff. We follow through." Neji looked at the sphere. He looked at Naruto. He looked at the sphere again. He thought about fate, about destiny, about everything he had built his identity on. And then he thought about the simple, practical reality that this blonde boy was genuinely going to destroy the village if Neji didn't say 2 words. I forfeit. Immediately. Without hesitation. Without caveats. 2 words, spoken clearly, because whatever fate had planned for Neji Hyuga, it did not include being the reason Konoha ceased to exist. Naruto smiled. It was a small smile, almost gentle. He raised 2 fingers and the Beerus ball began shrinking, smaller and smaller, from a sun to a house to a basketball to a marble. It compressed between his fingertips, all that world-ending energy, all that impossible destructive force, into a tiny point of violet light no bigger than a grape, and then he ate it. He popped it into his mouth like candy. Chewed once. Swallowed. Not bad, he said. Needed salt. The stadium was frozen. 20,000 people, 4 Kaji-level shinobi, hundreds of jonin and chunin, frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody did anything for a full 10 seconds. Then a single solitary vendor in the stands dropped his tray of snacks. The clatter echoed through the stadium, and the entire place erupted. Not in cheers, in raw, unfiltered, barely coherent noise. Screaming, shouting, people grabbing each other and pointing at the arena. A civilian woman in the 4th row fainted. A genin from Rock Village started crying. A Cloud Village jonin threw up. Genma, the proctor, stood in the arena with his senbon dangling from his lip, staring at Naruto with the expression of a man who had just watched a toddler bench press a mountain. Winner. Genma's voice cracked. He cleared his throat. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto walked out of the arena. He headed straight for the vendor section. He found the specialty tonkotsu ramen stand. He sat down. Large, extra chashu, extra egg. The vendor stared at him. The vendor had also seen the violet sun. Son, you just the up there you. Extra egg means 2 eggs, not 1, 2. The vendor made the ramen. His hands shook the entire time, but he made it. Naruto ate it in blissful silence while the stadium behind him continued to lose its collective mind. In the Kage box, the conversation was tense. Minato, Hiruzen said slowly, what have you been feeding that boy? Ramen, mostly. Ramen does not produce that. I'm aware. The Raikage was standing with his arms crossed, lightning armor still crackling. Hokage, that child is not a genin. That child is not even a shinobi. That child is a strategic level weapon. What exactly is he? He's my son. Your son just created a sphere of energy that I could sense from the Kage box. My sensory division is telling me that if he had detonated that sphere, it would have leveled not just this stadium, but the entire village and approximately 30 miles of surrounding terrain. Minato was quiet for a moment. That sounds about right. And you're fine with this? I am the opposite of fine with this. But he's my son and I love him and he likes ramen and he hasn't actually destroyed anything important. Minato paused. Except Manda. He destroyed Manda? It came up during the Forest of Death portion. The Raikage sat down heavily. His chair creaked. In his disguise, Orochimaru was reevaluating his entire invasion plan. He had come here intending to assassinate the Hokage and destroy the village using Sand Village forces and his Sound Ninja army. He had planned meticulously. He had prepared summoning jutsu, barrier techniques, and an undead army of resurrected Hokage. All of that planning now seemed, in light of the violet sun, approximately as threatening as a child's tantrum. The boy who had one-tapped him in the Forest of Death was out there eating ramen and could apparently create weapons of mass destruction at will. Orochimaru adjusted the Kazekage's hat and began mentally calculating the fastest route out of the village. The invasion happened anyway, because Orochimaru had committed too many resources to pull back completely, and because Kabuto had already activated the Genjutsu before Orochimaru could signal an abort. The stadium plunged into sleep. Genjutsu, a mass technique that knocked out anyone without the training to resist it. Civilians dropped. Weaker shinobi slumped. The sand and sound forces revealed themselves. Gaara was activated. The One-Tail's influence surged, partially transforming him. Sand armor forming, one arm becoming the massive claw of Shukaku. He was supposed to be the invasion's trump card. The Jinchuriki weapon that would devastate Konoha's forces while Orochimaru dealt with the Hokage. The plan fell apart in approximately 30 seconds, because Naruto was still at the ramen stand when the Genjutsu hit. The Genjutsu washed over him and broke. Not dispelled, broke, like a wave hitting a cliff. The technique wasn't designed for a being who operated on divine ki rather than chakra. Trying to put him under genjutsu was like trying to hypnotize a rock. Naruto looked up from his ramen. Around him, people were falling asleep. The sounds of combat erupted from the stadium. Explosions, screaming. The roar of something massive. Gaara's partial transformation. Naruto looked at his ramen. It was only half finished. Seriously? He muttered. He set his chopsticks down with the careful reverence of someone goodbye to a loved one. He turned toward the stadium. Purple eyes scanned the chaos. Enemy ninja swarming the streets. Sand shinobi engaging Konoha forces. Sound ninja breaking through the walls. And in the distance, Gaara, half transformed, rampaging toward the village center with murder in his one visible eye. Naruto sighed. The sigh of a god who just wanted to eat in peace. He floated upward. Just rose. No chakra, no platform, just defiance of gravity as a personal choice. He hovered above the streets, purple aura blazing. Every combatant in the immediate area, friend and enemy, stopped and looked up. I was eating, Naruto announced, his voice carrying effortlessly across the battlefield. Calm, flat, the kind of calm that precedes extinction-level events. My ramen is getting cold. I'm gonna solve this problem, quickly, and then I'm gonna go back to my ramen. If anyone interrupts me again, I will be displeased. You will not enjoy me being displeased. A sound ninja on a nearby roof, either very brave or very stupid, threw a kunai at Naruto. Hakai. Naruto pointed one finger. A tiny pulse of purple light hit the kunai mid-flight. The weapon ceased to exist, not deflected, not destroyed, erased. Every atom. The sound ninja stared at his empty hand, then at Naruto. Then he sat down on the roof and put his hands up. Surrender. Immediate and total. Naruto flew toward Gaara. The one-tailed Jinchuriki was rampaging through a section of the village wall, sand arms smashing buildings, the voice of Shukaku bleeding through Gaara's screaming mouth. He was lost in the madness, the bloodlust, the decades of isolation and pain, and a demon that whispered, kill, kill, kill. Naruto landed in front of him, Gaara's transformed eye fixed on the blonde. The sand arm reared back for a killing blow. Sand Shuriken! Gaara screamed, launching a barrage of hardened sand projectiles. Energy of destruction, barrier. The purple coat shimmered around Naruto. Every sand projectile turned to dust, finer than dust, turned to nothing, on contact. The destruction energy didn't just stop the sand, it unmade it. Each grain erased at a fundamental level. Gaara roared. He poured more chakra into the transformation. Shikaku's influence grew. The sand body expanded. Naruto watched. He tilted his head. Your tenant is scared, he said. Gaara paused. The madness flickered. The one tail inside you. I can feel it. It's terrified. It's been terrified since the moment you entered this village. It's using your pain to fuel itself because it's too afraid to face what's actually in this village. Shut up! Sand erupted from every direction. A tidal wave of grinding, crushing destruction aimed at one target. Naruto raised both hands. Psychokinesis. The sand stopped, all of it. Mid-air. Frozen in place by invisible force. Tons and tons of sand suspended in a dome around Gaara, every grain locked in place by telekinetic power. Gaara stared. The sand was his weapon, his armor, his identity. And this boy had just taken control of it, like picking up a toy. Naruto walked through the frozen sand, through the wall of grains that should have crushed him. They parted around him, still held by his will, unable to touch him. He reached Gaara, looked into those wild, pain-filled eyes, and for just a moment, something in Naruto's expression changed. Not softness, recognition. He saw something in Gaara that resonated with a fragment of his own ancient memory, loneliness, power without connection, strength without purpose. I know what it's like, Naruto said quietly, to be something no one understands. Gaara's lip trembled. But your monster doesn't define you, and your pain doesn't give you the right to take it out on people who make good ramen. He poked Gaara's forehead, one finger, gentle. Paralysis. Gaara's body locked. The transformation receded. Shukaku's influence was pushed back, not by force, but by the overwhelming presence of something that made the one tail retreat to the deepest corner of its seal and stay there. Gaara slumped. Naruto caught him before he hit the ground. You'll be fine, Naruto said. When you wake up, eat something. Food helps. He set Gaara down carefully and turned his attention to the rest of the invasion. It was over quickly after that. The sound and sand forces, witnessing their trump card defeated in seconds, lost coordination. Konoha's forces rallied. Minato handled the barrier where Orochimaru had been planning his assassination attempt. The snake Sanin had already fled, having decided that any plan that put him in the same battlefield as that purple-eyed child was not a plan worth executing. The invasion fizzled. Konoha sustained damage, but nothing catastrophic. The casualties were lighter than any scenario Minato's strategists had modeled, because the single greatest variable, Naruto, had resolved the biggest threat before it could fully develop. Naruto flew back to the ramen stand. The ramen was cold. He stared at it. The bowl of specialty tonkatsu that he had been forced to abandon. Cold noodles, congealed broth. A tragedy. "I'll make you a fresh one," the vendor said quickly, having watched the entire battle from behind his counter. "On the house, free, forever, anything you want." Naruto looked at him. Those purple eyes, that cat-like gaze. "Extra egg?" "As many eggs as you want." Naruto sat down. The vendor made the ramen with the reverence of a priest performing a sacred rite. When it was placed before Naruto, steaming, perfect, fragrant, the boy took his first bite and sighed with a contentment that no battlefield victory could ever match. This was peace. This was purpose. This was what being alive was for. The aftermath of the invasion reshuffled the entire political landscape of the shinobi world. Sand Village, realizing they'd been manipulated by Orochimaru, surrendered and sought a new alliance with Konoha. The Kazekage's body was found, the real one, confirming Orochimaru's infiltration. Gaara returned to Sand Village as a changed person. The madness was quieter now. He ate more. He slept better. He thought about the blonde boy who had stopped him with a poke and told him to eat something. But the biggest change was how the world now viewed Konoha. Word spread. It always does. Merchants talked, samurai gossiped, spies reported. The story grew with each telling, but even the most conservative version was staggering. Konoha had a weapon, a child, the Hokage's son. He could create spheres of energy that dwarfed tailed beast bombs. He could erase people from existence. He could stop invasions single-handedly. Every hidden village recalculated their relationship with the leaf. The Raikage doubled his border security and sent a personal letter to Minato that was half congratulations and half thinly veiled plea to never point that child in Cloud's direction. The Tsuchikage, Onoki, the fence-sitter, reportedly sat in silence for an hour after receiving the intelligence report, then ordered his village to pursue strictly diplomatic relations with Konoha for the foreseeable future. The Mizukage, Meitarumi, newly installed and reform-minded, sent a gift basket. And in a cave somewhere in Rain Country, the members of Akatsuki, the shadow organization of S-rank criminals hunting the tailed beasts, held an emergency meeting. The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, Pain said, his renegade eyes glowing in the darkness, may require a revised approach. Revised? Kasame laughed, showing his shark teeth. I saw the reports. The kid erased a Sanin summon and created a ball of energy that could level a village. What kind of revised approach handles that? Itachi Uchiha said nothing. He stood in the shadows, Sharingan spinning slowly, and thought about his little brother's teammate. About the reports. About the violet energy that defied every analytical framework the Sharingan could apply. He thought about Sasuke on a team with that being. And for the first time in years, the man who had murdered his entire clan for the sake of peace felt something he rarely allowed himself to feel. Relief. Sasuke was safer next to that boy than anywhere else in the world. Nothing could touch him there. Nothing would dare. Months passed. Konoha rebuilt. Naruto returned to routine. Missions, ramen, sleep. The cycle of a god enduring mortality. But something was brewing. Something that Naruto could feel in the spaces between sleep and waking, in the fragments of dreams that weren't dreams but memories. A face, a voice, an angel who served someone who served him. He was looking for something, the super shinobi god, a warrior worthy of his full attention. He hadn't found them yet. Everyone he encountered was noise. Background. Stage extras in a performance that hadn't reached its main act. And then Sasuke decided to leave. It wasn't sudden. It had been building since the forest state of death. Since watching Orochimaru fall. Since the Chunin exams. Since watching Naruto create a sun above a stadium and eat it like fruit. The gap between Sasuke and his teammate wasn't shrinking. It was expanding with every passing day. And the gap between Sasuke and Itachi, the brother he needed to kill, felt just as vast. Orochimaru's agents found him. The Sound Four, Sakon, Ukon, Tayuya, Kidomaru, Jirobo, elite bodyguards with curse marks and promises of power. They came to him in the night with an offer. Leave Konoha, come to Orochimaru, and gain the strength you need. Sasuke listened. Sasuke considered. Sasuke looked out his window toward the Hokage mansion, where he knew Naruto was sleeping, and felt the familiar frustration of standing in the shadow of something so bright it made everything else invisible. He made his choice. He left. Konoha's response was immediate. Minato dispatched a retrieval team. The logical choice would have been a full Jonin squad, but the village was still recovering from the invasion and resources were thin. The team assembled was Shikamaru Nara, team leader Chunin, Kiba Inuzuka, Neji Hyuga, Choji Akimichi, and Rock Lee. And Naruto, who was not formally assigned, but who showed up at the gate with his hands in his pockets and his eyes half closed and a look on his face that said he'd been woken up early and someone was going to answer for it. You don't have to come, Shikamaru said. The mission parameters. Sasuke is my teammate, Naruto said. His voice was flat, but something underneath it carried weight. He's being stupid. I'm going to stop him from being stupid. Then I'm coming back for breakfast. Shikamaru looked at Naruto, then at the sky, then at the trees. Troublesome, he said, but he didn't argue. Nobody argued with Naruto. It was like arguing with weather. They moved out. The pursuit team tracked the Sound Four through the forest. The Sound Ninja had anticipated pursuit and split up, each one serving as a roadblock to slow the Leaf team down. What they had not anticipated was Naruto. The first Sound Four member they encountered was Jirobo, the large, Earth-style user who could drain chakra through physical contact and had the curse mark's second stage transformation. Jirobo created a massive Earth-style dome to trap the team. Standard tactic. Drain their chakra while they were sealed inside. Naruto looked at the dome, looked at his teammates, looked at the dome again. Hakai. He pressed one palm flat against the stone wall. The entire dome, every molecule of earth, every grain of chakra-reinforced rock ceased to exist. Not broken, not shattered, erased. The team stood in open air where a 30-foot dome of solid stone had been a moment ago. Jirobo, standing on a tree branch outside, stared at the empty space. His jutsu was gone, not broken, gone. Like it had never existed, Naruto appeared in front of him. Pressure point attack, one tap. Jirobo dropped, out cold. Next, Naruto said. The other Sound Four members went down just as fast. Kidomaru, the spider user who could create webs and projectiles from his body, got off one volley of golden arrows before Naruto used psychokinesis to stop them mid-flight and return them to cinder. Kidomaru was pinned to a tree by his own weapons. Tayuya, the genjutsu specialist with the flute, started playing her mind control melody. Naruto listened for 3 notes. Ki. The shockwave shattered the flute, blew Tayuya off her tree, and knocked her unconscious against a boulder. Sakon and Ukon, the two-headed brothers who could merge with opponents' bodies, tried to get close for their parasitic attack. Naruto activated the energy of destruction, barrier. They couldn't touch him. Getting close enough to merge meant getting close enough to be disintegrated. They surrendered. 4 elite Sound Ninja, 4 of Orochimaru's personal guard, defeated in under 10 minutes total. Shikamaru, Kiba, Neji, Choji, and Lee stood in the forest, watching Naruto walk ahead and shared a collective look that communicated a single unified thought. Why were we even here? To carry the unconscious bodies back, Shikamaru said, answering the unspoken question. That's why we're here. We're the cleanup crew. I feel useful, Kiba said flatly. Akamaru barked. It was a bark of resigned agreement. The Valley of the End. The place where Madara Uchiha and Hashirama Senju had fought their final battle, where 2 massive stone statues stood facing each other across a waterfall. The eternal monument to the conflict that had defined the shinobi world. Sasuke stood at the base of Madara's statue. The curse mark was active. Not just stage 1, stage 2. Full transformation. His skin had turned dark gray, wing-like hands spread from his back. His eyes blazed with Sharingan crimson. The power Orochimaru had planted in him surged through every cell, every fiber, every thought. He looked monstrous. He looked powerful. He looked like everything Orochimaru had promised. And he looked at Naruto landing on the opposite end of the valley, hovering down from the sky, purple aura burning, violet eyes half-lidded, and felt the familiar crushing weight of perspective. "You came," Sasuke said. His voice was distorted by the transformation. Deeper, rougher. "You left," Naruto replied. "During breakfast hours. That's unforgivable." "I'm leaving Konoha. I need power. Power to kill Itachi. Power you could never understand because you were born with everything handed to you. You look like a hairless cat. Ugly." Sasuke's eye twitched. The curse mark flared. "What?" "The gray skin, the weird hands, the neck thing." Naruto tilted his head. "You look like something that crawled out of a drain and needs a bath. I am wielding power beyond anything a normal human. You're wearing a snake man's leftovers and calling it strength. There's a difference." Naruto's eyes opened fully. Purple. Ancient. The slitted pupils contracted. "Come home, Sasuke." "No. Then I'll bring you home." Sasuke screamed, not in words, in rage, in frustration, in the accumulated weight of being the second best on a team where first best was an actual deity. He charged, and it was everything he had. Chidori blazed in his fist. The lightning technique shrieked. 1,000 birds compressed into a single point of electrical destruction. His Sharingan predicted. His curse mark amplified. His wings propelled him. Every ounce of power, every drop of cursed energy, every bit of natural talent. All of it funneled into one strike. He crossed the valley in a heartbeat. His fist connected with Naruto's chest. The Chidori hit, lightning crackled. Energy discharged. The deft impact should have blown a hole through a building. Naruto didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't blink. The Chidori, the assassination technique created by Kakashi Hake, perfected through combat, amplified by the curse mark, fizzled against Naruto's chest like a spark against stone. The lightning dissipated, the energy died. Sasuke's fist rested against Naruto's sternum with all the impact of a gentle push. Sasuke's Sharingan eyes widened. His hand trembled. Naruto looked down at the fist on his chest, then up at Sasuke. "Are you done?" The water below them evaporated, not from the fight, from Naruto's aura. The purple ki that radiated from his body in a constant invisible field had intensified just enough to superheat the mist rising from the waterfall. The valley was shrouded in steam. Sasuke pulled his fist back. He stumbled. The curse mark was burning, not just his body, but his mind. Orochimaru's influence was whispering. "More power. Attack again. Don't stop. Never stop." "Chidori!" Sasuke screamed, charging again. Both hands this time. Double Chidori. Lightning wrapping up both arms, wings beating, Sharingan blazing. Paralysis. Sasuke froze mid-air, mid-charge, mid-scream. His body locked into place, suspended above the water by invisible ki pressure. The lightning in his hands crackled and died. His wings went rigid. His Sharingan kept spinning, recording everything, powerless to change anything. He couldn't blink. He couldn't breathe fully. He could barely think. The pressure was so complete, so absolute, that his conscious mind was reduced to a single point of awareness trapped in a body that had become a statue. Naruto floated up to his level. Those purple eyes, cat-like, ancient, belonging to something that existed before chakra, before the Sage of Six Paths, before the concept of shinobi, studied Sasuke's frozen form. "I thought you might be the super shinobi god," Naruto said quietly. "I thought you might be the one I was looking for, the one who could challenge me, push me, make this mortal life feel like it was worth staying awake for." He paused. "You're not." The words hung in the air like a verdict. "You're talented, you're driven, but you're chasing power through someone else's corruption, and that will never make you what you need to be. That snake didn't give you strength. He gave you a leash." Naruto reached out. His hand touched Sasuke's face, the gray, transformed skin, the curse marks spreading like dark veins. The touch was almost clinical, almost gentle. Sealing technique divine. The curse mark reacted. It erupted. Black flames of Orochimaru's influence crawled across Sasuke's skin, fighting back with everything the snake Sanin had embedded. The mark was not just a power source, it was a piece of Orochimaru's consciousness, a hook, a backdoor, a claim of ownership on Sasuke's body and will. It fought with the desperate energy of a parasite that knew it was about to be removed. Naruto's divine energy surged. It was not a battle. It was not a contest. A battle implies two sides of comparable force. This was a correction. Naruto's energy, the fundamental force of destruction itself, the power that had erased a death god's arm, that had obliterated a king of serpents, that had made the Nine Tails hide in fear flowed through Sasuke's body and found every trace of Orochimaru's influence, every tendril, every whispered promise, every implanted ambition, every cell that had been corrupted, found, isolated, destroyed. Not sealed, not suppressed, destroyed, at the atomic level, at the spiritual level, erased from Sasuke's body and soul, the same way Naruto erased everything, completely, permanently, without negotiation. Sasuke screamed. The sound echoed off the valley walls. It was the sound of someone being freed from something they hadn't fully understood was holding them. The sound of chains breaking. The sound of a mind being returned to its owner. The curse mark burned away. The dark skin faded. The wings dissolved. The distortion in Sasuke's features receded. What was left was Sasuke Uchiha. Just Sasuke. No snake. No corruption. No whispered promises. Just a boy with red eyes and black hair and a pain in his chest that was finally purely his own. Naruto released the paralysis. Sasuke dropped toward the water. Naruto caught him by the collar, held him above the surface. Sasuke's eyes were half closed, exhausted, drained. The removal of the curse mark had taken everything he had, but he was conscious. He could see, he could hear. Why? Sasuke rasped. Why do you care? Naruto was quiet for a moment. The purple aura dimmed. The godly pressure eased. For just a moment, in the steaming valley between two ancient statues, the god receded and the boy emerged. Because you're on my team, Naruto said, and my team eats ramen together, you owe me a meal. He kicked Sasuke, not gently. A solid kick that launched the Uchiha into the cliff face, Hashirama's side naturally, hard enough to leave an impression in the rock. A Sasuke-shaped crater, arms spread, legs dangling, embedded in ancient stone. Naruto floated up to the crater and looked at Sasuke, who was barely conscious, bruised, exhausted, free, and stuck in a wall. Train for another 100 years, Naruto said. Then maybe you will be worth destroying. He turned. He flew back toward Konoha. He did not look back. Below him, the valley settled. The steam cleared. The waterfall resumed. And in the cliff face, Sasuke Uchiha hung in his crater and stared at the sky with clear eyes. Sharingan deactivated. Curse mark gone. Orochimaru's voice silenced forever. And thought about ramen. He'd never thought about ramen before. Not seriously. Not with intention. But right now, hanging in a rock wall, freed from a curse, defeated without effort by a teammate who was something he couldn't explain. Right now, ramen sounded really, really good. By the time Naruto landed outside Ichiraku Ramen, the sun was setting. Konoha glowed golden in the evening light. The streets were quiet. The reconstruction from the invasion was nearly complete. The village looked, for the first time in months, like itself. Naruto pushed aside the curtain and sat on his favorite stool. Third from the left, the one with the slight wobble that he had decided was character. Tochi. The old man looked up from his broth. He smiled. The same smile he'd been giving Naruto since the boy could barely see over the counter. The usual? Special pork miso, extra chashu, extra broth, the good stuff. Big day? I kicked Sasuke into a wall. Is he okay? He'll be fine. He needed a wall. Tochi chuckled and began preparing the bowl. The broth was homemade, simmered for 18 hours with pork bones, garlic, ginger, and a secret ingredient that Tochi would take to his grave. The noodles were fresh, hand-pulled that morning. The chashu was braised until it melted against the tongue. Ayame leaned on the counter. You look tired. I'm always tired. You also have stone dust in your hair. That's from the cliff face. She brushed the dust out of his hair with her hand. It was a casual, sisterly gesture. Naruto let her. The violet eyes softened. The permanent edge, the constant undercurrent of divine impatience eased. Tochi set the bowl in front of him. Steam rose from the broth in lazy spirals. The aroma was perfect. Rich, deep, complex. The culmination of decades of craft and passion and an old man's love for his work. Naruto picked up his chopsticks. He paused. In that pause, the god and the boy existed in the same space. The ancient being who had destroyed galaxies and the 12-year-old who loved noodles. The force of nature and the kid who let a ramen girl brush dust from his hair. They were the same person. They had always been the same person. Naruto took his first bite. The noodles were perfect. The broth was perfect. The chashu dissolved on his tongue like a prayer being answered. He closed his eyes. He chewed. He swallowed. And he sighed. It was a sigh of absolute, transcendent contentment. The kind of sigh that comes from the deepest part of a person or a god when something broken settles into place, when the noise stops, when the world for one perfect moment makes complete and total sense. 10 out of 10, Naruto said. Tucci's eyes went wide. In 12 years of daily visits, 12 years of bowls, 12 years of Naruto rating every batch with the precision and ruthlessness of a divine food critic, the highest score had been an 8. 10? Tochi whispered. 10. Tochi sat down on a crate behind his counter. His eyes were wet. Ayame was hugging her father. The old man was openly crying. 10, Tochi repeated, like a man who had just been told he'd achieved enlightenment. Naruto slurped his noodles. He didn't look up. He didn't need to. The ramen was perfect. The evening was warm. His teammate would come home. His village was safe. The world was, for the moment, in order. He finished the bowl. He set it down. He leaned back on his stool, folded his arms behind his head, and looked up at the sky through the gap in the stand's curtain. Stars were coming out. The first ones, faint and distant. He was looking for something up there. He had always been looking. A specific star, a specific memory, a name he couldn't quite remember. Something that started with W. Or maybe it was a title, an angel, a figure with a staff who stood beside him through eternities. The memory flickered. It always flickered. It never quite resolved. But sitting on a wobbling stool in a ramen stand in a ninja village, stomach full, world quiet, purpose unclear, but contentment certain, Naruto Uzumaki, the mortal reincarnation of Lord Beerus, the god of destruction, decided that was okay. He didn't need to remember everything tonight. He had ramen. He had a team. He had a village full of people who were simultaneously terrified of him and deeply, reluctantly, undeniably fond of him. And he had time. Yeah? Another bowl. She laughed. You just said it was a 10. Exactly. I need to verify. She made him another bowl. He ate it. Also a 10. He verified a third time to be sure. Also a 10. He was on his 6th bowl when a battered, dust-covered, exhausted Sasuke Uchiha stumbled into Ichiraku Ramen. Shikamaru's retrieval team had brought him back, along with the 4 unconscious sound ninja, all neatly packaged for Konoha's intelligence division. Sasuke stood in the entrance of the ramen stand. He looked at Naruto, at the pile of empty bowls, at the peaceful, half-lidded expression on the blonde's face. You kicked me into a wall, Sasuke said. You deserved a wall. You destroyed my curse mark. You're welcome. You carried me half the fight, and you're sitting here eating ramen like nothing happened. Something happened. I found a 10 out of 10 ramen. That's the thing that happened today. Sasuke stood there, his fists clenched, his jaw tightened. Every rational part of his brain told him to be angry, to feel humiliated, to let the old patterns of rivalry and bitterness reassert themselves. But the old patterns had Orochimaru's fingerprints on them, and Orochimaru's fingerprints were gone now. What was left was just Sasuke, and just Sasuke was tired and hungry. Is the ramen actually good? He asked. Naruto looked at him. Something in those purple eyes glinted, something warm, something almost human. Sit down and find out. Sasuke sat. Tochi made him a bowl. Ayame brought water. Naruto continued eating. They sat in silence for a while. 2 teammates. One god, one prodigy. One who could destroy worlds, one who could barely hold chopsticks because his hands were still shaking from having a parasite ripped out of his soul. Sasuke took his first bite. His eyes went wide. This is really, I know. Sasuke ate. Naruto ate. They didn't talk about the valley. They didn't talk about the curse mark. They didn't talk about power or gods or fate or destiny. They ate ramen. Sakura found them there 20 minutes later. She'd heard Sasuke was back. She'd sprinted from the hospital where she'd been studying medical jutsu under Tsunade, who had come to the village after the invasion, drawn by reports of a child who had done things that made her grandfather's wood style look like a party trick. She burst through the curtain, breathing hard, eyes wild. She saw Sasuke, alive, human, no curse mark, eating ramen. She saw Naruto, same as always, half asleep, eating. You're both. She couldn't finish. Tears ran down her cheeks. Not sad tears, relief tears. Team is together tears. Sit down, Naruto said without looking up. Eat. She sat down. She ate. Kakashi arrived 10 minutes after that. He'd been debriefed by Minato. He'd read the retrieval team's report. He'd stood in the Hokage's office and tried to articulate a professional assessment of his students' capabilities, and had eventually just said, I have no assessment. He's beyond assessment. Please let me retire. Minato had denied the retirement request. Kakashi walked into Ichiraku. He saw his team, all three of them, alive, together, eating. Yo, he said. You're late. All three responded simultaneously. Kakashi's eye crinkled. He sat down. He ordered a bowl. He pulled his mask down just enough to eat, and if Tochi and Ayame saw his face, they never told anyone. Some things are sacred. Team 7 ate ramen. The night deepened. The stars came out in full. The village settled into sleep, and at a small ramen stand on a quiet street in Konoha, a god sat among mortals and found for the first time he could remember, in this life or any other, that he was not bored. Not bored at all. The ramen was too good to be bored, and the company, loud, damaged, stubborn, fragile, human company, was better than he would ever admit out loud. Naruto set down his chopsticks. He looked at his empty bowl. He looked at his team. He closed his eyes. And for once, when he drifted off to sleep, he didn't dream of stars or purple energy or a life he couldn't remember. He dreamed of ramen, and it was a 10 out of 10. Across the shinobi world, in hidden villages and secret bases and shadowed meetings, the name Naruto Uzumaki was spoken in tones reserved for natural disasters and divine interventions. The reports were analyzed. The intelligence was debated. Strategies were formed and discarded. Plans were made and unmade. In a Megakure, Pain stared at the rain and reconsidered the concept of pain itself. In an underwater base, Kasame sharpened Samahata and wondered if the sword would even bite into someone like that. In a dark room, Tobi, the masked man, the true power behind Akatsuki, sat in silence and thought about the implication of a god living in a mortal's body. His plans required the nine tails. His plans required all the tailed beasts. His plans required a world that followed rules. Naruto Uzumaki did not follow rules. This was going to be a problem. Tobi sat in the dark for a very long time after thinking that thought. The masked man, Obito Uchiha, though no living person knew that name belonged to the spiral mask, had spent decades constructing the moon's eye plan with the patience of a spider and the precision of a surgeon. Every variable had been accounted for. Every contingency mapped. The tailed beasts would be collected. The 10 tails would be revived. The infinite Tsukuyomi would be cast. The world would dream forever, and the pain of existence would finally, mercifully end. The plan had one assumption baked into its foundation, that the laws of the shinobi world were the only laws that mattered. That assumption had just developed a crack the size of a continent. He sat in the dark, and the dark sat with him, and neither of them had a solution. 2.5 years passed, not in any way that mattered to Naruto. Time was a mortal concern, and while Naruto was technically mortal, heart, lungs, stomach that demanded ramen at precise intervals, his relationship with the passage of years was more theoretical than personal. Time happened around him the way weather happens around a mountain. He noticed it. He did not participate in it. Here is what Naruto Uzumaki did during the 2.5-year time skip that the rest of the shinobi world spent preparing for the next era of conflict. He ate ramen. He slept on rooftops. He developed a preference for a specific type of miso, aged red miso, fermented for no less than 18 months, blended with a white miso base at a ratio he had determined through exhaustive empirical testing was exactly 7:3. He informed Tochi of this ratio. Tochi, who had been making ramen for 30 years, adjusted his recipe without argument because the boy had a palate that could detect a single grain of salt out of place, and the authority of someone whose food opinions were backed by the ability to erase mountains. He destroyed 7 uninhabited rock formations during this period. Small ones, nothing dramatic. He would be lying on a rooftop at 3 in the morning, unable to sleep, restless in a way that had nothing to do with energy and everything to do with something inside him that remembered being vast and was currently very, very compressed. He would fly, silently, invisibly, a streak of violet against the stars, to some empty plateau in the land of fire's wilderness, and he would point one finger at a cliff face and whisper Hakai and watch 1,000 tons of granite cease to exist. It helped, the way stretching helps a cramp. Temporary relief for a permanent condition, the dreams were the worst part, or the best part. He could never decide. He dreamed of a palace on a planet that was shaped wrong. Too many rings, too many moons, gravity that bent in ways that felt like home. He dreamed of food that tasted like colors he couldn't name. He dreamed of a tall figure, slim and pale, with white hair and a staff, and a smile that managed to be both deeply respectful and gently mocking at the same time. The figure said things he couldn't hear when he woke up. The figure poured tea. The figure stood beside him on a cliff, overlooking something so beautiful it made his chest ache even in the dream. He woke up every time reaching for something that wasn't there. "Whis," he said once at 4 a.m. on a rooftop to no one. The name had just appeared in his mouth like a bubble rising from deep water. He didn't know what it meant. He didn't know who it belonged to. But saying it made the ache worse and better at the same time. He went back to sleep. The village settled during those years. Not because the threats had gone. The intelligence reports about Akatsuki grew thicker by the month, but because Konoha had something no other village had. A deterrent, an absolute. A blonde teenager who slept 16 hours a day and could end civilizations between meals. The peace wasn't fragile. It was heavy, dense. The peace of a territory where the apex predator was visible and content, and no one was stupid enough to disturb its nap. Minato governed. Kushina trained young Kunoichi and was loud about it in a way that made Naruto say at least once a week, "She reminds me of someone." He never elaborated. Kakashi read his books. Sakura studied under Tsunade and became something genuinely impressive, a medical ninja with the strength to crack the earth. Though she was smart enough to know that cracking the earth meant nothing when her teammate could erase it. Sasuke trained. Alone, mostly, in the Uchiha compound, which was empty except for him and the ghosts he was learning to live with. The curse mark was gone. Orochimaru's whisper was gone. What remained was Sasuke Uchiha, raw and unfiltered, training his Sharingan in his body with the grim dedication of someone who had been shown the ceiling of existence and was climbing toward it anyway. Not because he thought he could reach it, but because climbing was all he knew how to do. He ate at Ichiraku once a week. He never sat next to Naruto, always 2 stools down. But he was there. And then Naruto walked back through Konoha's gates after a 3-day rooftop nap on a mountain he liked in the northern wilderness, and the time skip was over. He was taller. His hair was longer. His eyes were the same, violet, cat-like, ancient, half-closed against a world that had not yet earned his full attention. He wore a black jacket over mesh armor because Kushina had bought it for him, and she had red hair and was very loud when ignored, and some battles even gods did not win. Kakashi met him at the gate. The copy ninja looked the same. Silver hair, mask, one visible eye that crinkled when he smiled and went flat when he was doing math about threats. "You've grown," Kakashi said. "You haven't," Naruto replied. "Rude. Accurate." Sakura arrived at a sprint. She had heard he was back. She skidded to a stop in front of him, breathing hard, pink hair shorter now, eyes sharper, hands that could shatter boulders balled at her sides. "Naruto." "Sakura, you look the same. You look stronger." She blinked. That was by Naruto's standards a speech, a compliment, a full paragraph of emotional engagement. "Thank you," she said and meant it. Sasuke appeared on a rooftop across the street. He didn't come down. He didn't wave down. He stood with his arms crossed and his Sharingan off and looked at Naruto with an expression that was not rivalry and not friendship and not worship, but something uniquely Sasuke. A recognition that this person existed on a scale he would spend his entire life trying to comprehend, and that the attempt itself had become the point. Naruto glanced up at him. One corner of his mouth moved. It might have been a smile. It might have been indigestion. With Naruto, these were sometimes the same thing. "Ichiraku," Naruto said, to no one and everyone. They went, they ate, it was good, and then Akatsuki made their move. The intelligence arrived on Minato's desk 3 days after Naruto's return. 2 Akatsuki operatives had been spotted crossing the border of the Land of Fire. Itachi Uchiha and Kasame Hoshigaki, S rank, the best field team in the organization. Their trajectory pointed directly at Konoha. Minato assembled the response. Kakashi, 2 ambush squads, and a message to Naruto that read, "Akatsuki approaching, 2 S rank. Interested?" Naruto's response, delivered by a shadow clone that appeared in Minato's office, yawned and dissolved, was, "I'll handle it. Is there food on the road?" There was not food on the road, but Naruto brought a sealed container of Ichiraku's special pork miso anyway, because he was not an animal and he planned ahead when it mattered. He found them 12 miles outside the village. A forest clearing, afternoon sun filtering through the canopy. Birds singing because the birds had not yet figured out what was about to happen. Birds were optimistic like that. Itachi Uchiha stood at the tree line, calm, composed, his Sharingan active, 3 tomoe spinning slowly, the Mangekyou pattern lurking beneath like a held breath. He wore the Akatsuki cloak with the red clouds and the look of a man who had made peace with his own tragedy long ago and was now simply following the choreography of a life he had designed to end at someone else's hands. Kasame Hoshigaki stood beside him, massive, blue-skinned, grinning with teeth that could cut through bone. Samehada, the sentient shark-skinned sword that absorbed chakra like a sponge, was unwrapped and resting on his shoulder, its scales bristling with anticipation. "So this is the Jinchuriki," Kasame said, eyeing Naruto. "He's smaller than I expected." Naruto was sitting on a rock, eating his ramen. He had found the clearing, determined it was sufficiently open for whatever was about to happen, and decided to eat first because priorities existed, and they started with noodles. "He is eating," Itachi observed. "Should we wait?" "No," Kasame grinned wider. "Music to my ears." He moved. Kasame Hoshigaki was fast for a man his size, deceptively fast, the kind of fast that killed people who assumed bulk meant slowness. He closed the distance in 3 massive strides, Samehada swinging in a horizontal arc designed to cleave and absorb simultaneously. The sword screamed with hunger. It could taste the chakra in the air, massive reserves, oceanic, the Nine-Tails signature permeating everything. Samehada hit Naruto's aura. The sound it made was wrong. Not the meaty thwack of impact, not the sizzling hiss of chakra absorption. A crack, sharp, crystalline. The sound of something very old and very confident encountering something it was fundamentally unequipped to process. A fissure ran down Samehada's blade. Not large, hairline, but the sword felt it and the sword recoiled. The sentient weapon, the blade that had absorbed the chakra of Kaji-level shinobi without hesitation, flinched away from Naruto's energy field the way a hand flinches from a stove. Because what it had tasted was not chakra, it was godly ki. And godly ki was not food. Godly ki was the thing that decided whether food got to continue existing. Kasame stared at Samehada, the crack in the blade, the way the scales had gone flat, not bristling, flat, pressed against the steel like a scared animal trying to make itself small. "What the? Your sword is rude," Naruto said. He had not looked up from his ramen. He had not moved. He had not flinched. He picked up a piece of chashu with his chopsticks, examined it with the focus of a jeweler examining a diamond, and ate it. Then he raised his free hand. Psychokinesis. Samehada ripped out of Kasame's grip. Not a gentle removal, a full telekinetic yank that pulled the massive sword away from its wielder like plucking a toy from a child. Samehada sailed through the air, spinning lazily, and came to rest against a tree trunk, propped upright, placed there with the careful precision of someone who respected weapons even when the weapons were rude. Kisame's hands were still in the gripping position. He stared at his empty palms. He stared at Samehada across the clearing. He stared at the blonde kid eating ramen on a rock. "That's my sword," Kisame said. "It's over there now," Naruto replied, gesturing with his chopsticks. Kisame, to his eternal credit, did not run. Kasame Hoshigaki had many qualities: brutality, loyalty, a sense of humor that was as dark as the bottom of the ocean. But cowardice was not among them. He had faced Kage. He had fought Jinchuriki. He was one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. He did not run from fights. He charged barehanded. Naruto set down his ramen container. He sighed. He stood up, ki-ai, one open palm, one pulse of invisible omnidirectional godly pressure. Not aimed, not shaped, just released, the way you might exhale after holding your breath. Kasame flew. His body left the ground, crossed the clearing, went through the first tree, solid oak, 3 feet in diameter, and kept going. Through the second tree, through the third, through a boulder that had been sitting in that forest since before the founding of Konoha. Kasame came to rest 40 meters away, half embedded in a 4th tree, his chest armor cracked, his ribs making sounds that ribs should not make, and his consciousness taking an immediate and involuntary leave of absence. 1 hit, 1 S rank missing 9. Done. Naruto sat back down. He picked up his ramen. Itachi Uchiha had not moved. He stood at the tree line, Sharingan spinning, and his eyes, the eyes that had seen the massacre of his own clan, the eyes that had endured every darkness the shinobi world could produce, showed nothing. No fear, no surprise. Just calculation, running at a speed that would burn out lesser minds. He had watched Kisame, his partner, one of the strongest shinobi alive, get removed from the fight by an attack that looked like someone waving hello. He had watched a sentient sword crack from proximity. He had processed all of it, his Mangekyo Sharingan activated. Tsukuyomi, the ultimate genjutsu, the technique that compressed 72 hours of psychological torture into a single second of real time. The technique that had broken Kakashi Atake, had shattered the minds of S-rank shinobi, had never, in the entire history of the Uchiha clan, been resisted by a single target. Itachi's left eye locked onto Naruto's. The Tsukuyomi deployed. The illusory world began to form. The red sky, the inverted moon, the cross where the victim would be bound. It shattered, not resisted, not broken through. Shattered. The genjutsu touched Naruto's mind and encountered something that was not a mind in any way the Tsukuyomi was designed to interact with. Naruto's consciousness was layered. The surface was human, mortal, a boy who liked noodles and sleep. But beneath that surface was something vast and luminous and ancient. A divine awareness that existed outside the framework of chakra entirely. And when the Tsukuyomi tried to wrap itself around that awareness, it was like trying to gift wrap the sun. The illusion collapsed. The chakra discharged harmlessly. Itachi's left eye bled, not from the technique's cost, but from the backlash of his own jutsu being rejected so completely that the energy had nowhere to go but back. Itachi blinked. Blood ran down his cheek. His Mangekyo spun and found nothing it could do. Naruto looked at him. Those purple eyes, cat-like, focused now, studying, evaluating. The ramen was forgotten for the first time in this encounter. "Are you the one?" Naruto asked. The question carried weight that had nothing to do with volume. It was the question Naruto had been asking his whole life, in every fight, in every encounter, in every moment where someone stood opposite him and represented the possibility that maybe, this time, the universe had produced something worth waking up for. The super shinobi god, the worthy opponent, the reason for existing in this compressed, mortal, ramen-scented life. Itachi Uchiha, despite every alarm in his body screaming at him to leave, met those purple eyes. He held the gaze. He felt the divine pressure push against his consciousness like an ocean leaning on a seawall, and he held. "No," Itachi said. His voice was steady. It was the steadiness of a man who had long ago accepted what he was and was not. "I am not what you are looking for." Naruto studied him for 3 more seconds. Then he nodded. The pressure eased. The evaluation ended. "Your eyes are dying," Naruto said. Not a question, an observation. The same way he observed overcooked noodles, factual, dispassionate, slightly disappointed. Itachi said nothing. "You have someone you care about, a brother, the one on my team." Itachi said nothing, but his jaw tightened. "Interesting," Naruto said. He picked up his ramen. "Take your partner and go. Keep your sword." It tried hard. He sat back down. He ate. He did not watch Itachi leave because Itachi was no longer relevant to his attention. Itachi collected Kisame, dragging the massive man with a strength that belied his thin frame, and vanished into the tree line. He did not look back. He had spent years learning to never look back. 3 days later, in an Akatsuki base that smelled like damp stone and existential dread, Itachi delivered his report to Tobi. He delivered it standing, because Itachi did not sit when delivering bad news. "The intelligence was wrong," Itachi said. "The Nine Tails is not the threat." "Explain," Tobi said from the shadows. "The container is the threat. The container is everything." Itachi paused. His Mangekyo spun reflexively, a habit like a man rubbing a scar. "I deployed Tsukuyomi. It did not fail. It was rendered irrelevant. His mind exists on a frequency my techniques cannot access." Kisame Samehada cracked on contact with his ambient energy. Not his attack, his ambient energy. The passive field he generates while eating noodles was sufficient to damage a legendary blade. Silence. Kisame was neutralized by a single open palm technique that used no chakra, no hand signs, and no visible accumulation of energy. The technique appeared to be pure kinetic force generated from an unknown power source. Another pause. "I do not recommend engaging the Uzumaki boy. We need the Nine Tails, Toby said. Then find a way to extract it without involving the boy. Because involving the boy will end whatever team you send. Itachi left. The shadows stayed. Toby sat in the dark and thought about the crack in Samehada, and the blood on Itachi's face, and the fundamental flaw in a plan that had seemed, until very recently, perfect. The full Akatsuki roster learned the details over the following weeks. The information spread the way all catastrophic information spreads in organizations of talented, dangerous people. Through whispers, through inference, through the particular silence that descends when everyone in a room knows something terrible and no one wants to be the first to say it out loud. Toby called the meeting. The astral projections assembled, 10 figures standing on the fingers of the ghetto statue, holographic and flickering, each one representing an S-ranked threat that would give most nations nightmares. The Nine Tails Jinchuriki, Toby began, requires a revised approach. Revised how? Deidara's projection leaned forward, one eye covered by his blonde fringe, the other blazing with the manic energy of someone who considered explosions a form of self-expression. We send more people. We use more force. Art is an explosion, yeah? We just need a bigger explosion. Kisame used Samehada, Toby said flatly. The sword cracked. Deidara paused. It cracked? On contact with the boy's passive energy field. What does that even mean? It means, Sasori interjected, his voice the dry rasp of a man who had replaced his own body with a puppet decades ago and did not waste words, that the boy emits something that damages legendary weapons as a side effect of existing. His wooden fingers, which had been adjusting a fine chakra thread on one of his puppet joints, went still. They stayed still for a full 3 seconds. For Sasori, that was the equivalent of screaming. Itachi deployed Tsukuyomi, Toby continued. It shattered on contact with the boy's consciousness. The silence that followed was the kind that has texture, heavy and rough. Kasame, recovered but bruised in places he did not like discussing, spoke from his projection. I hit him, or I tried. Samehada was moving, aimed true, and the moment it touched whatever he's putting out, it was like shoving the blade into a star. The sword pulled away before I could push through. My own weapon refused to make contact. He grinned, but it was the grin of a man who had looked into deep water and seen something looking back. The kid's interesting. I'll give him that. Hidan, predictably, had the worst take. I'll offer him to Lord Jashin. A being of that power. Jashin would reward me beyond anything. I just need to get his blood, perform the ritual. His blood? Kakuzu, Hidan's partner, the man who had lived for a century by stealing hearts and who measured everything in the cold currency of survival, looked at Hidan with the expression of someone watching a moth fly toward a bonfire. You intend to draw blood from a being that cracks Samehada passively. Jashin protects me. I'm immortal. Nobody told Hidan this was a bad idea. Kakuzu, specifically, said nothing. He had been looking for a way to replace Hidan for months. This seemed efficient. Conan's projection stood silent at the edge of the group. She had not spoken. She had paper wings folded at her back and eyes that reflected the eternal reign of a Megakure, and a mind that was calculating trajectories not of battle, but of belief. She was thinking about Nagato, about pain, about their shared dream of peace through power, and what it meant when a power existed that made their concept of power look like a child's drawing. She said nothing because saying something would have meant acknowledging the problem, and acknowledging the problem would have meant confronting what it did to their theology. Pain, all 6 projections standing in formation, the Rinnegan glowing in 12 eyes, spoke last. There is a God in the world, he said. The words fell into the silence like stones into water. A real one. Not the God we claim to be. Not the God of pain or the God of peace. A God of destruction. I have read the reports. I have felt the residual energy signature from the Chunin exam's transmission. What we are sensing is not shinobi power amplified to an extreme degree. It is a fundamentally different order of existence occupying a mortal form. The projections were very quiet. If there is a real God, Payne continued, then the question is no longer whether our plan can succeed. The question is whether a real God permits it. And if it doesn't? Deidara asked. Payne said nothing. The meeting ended. Deidara found Naruto 4 months later, because Deidara was the kind of person who heard "do not engage" and interpreted it as engage loudly. He tracked the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki to a valley in the land of rivers. Naruto had been napping on a cliff face, having wandered out of the village on one of his restless jaunts. Deidara arrived on a clay bird, riding the thermals, hands working the explosive clay into shapes that only he considered beautiful. "Hey!" Deidara screamed from 300 feet up. "Nine-Tails, kid! They say you're something special, yeah? Let's see how special you are when art rains down on you." Naruto opened one eye. He looked up at the clay bird. He looked at the maniac standing on it. He closed his eye. "Go away. Art is an explosion." C1 detonations rained down. Small ones first, dozens of clay spiders and birds detonating across the valley floor, each one a controlled blast of concentrated explosive chakra. The valley shook. Craters blossomed. Smoke and fire filled the air. Naruto lay on his cliff and did not move. The explosions hit around him, near him, on top of where he was lying. The cliff face shattered under the bombardment, rocks tumbling, fire blooming, dust clouds swallowing everything. When the dust cleared, Naruto was floating, 3 feet above where the cliff had been, hovering in empty air, arms still behind his head, eyes still closed. Not a mark on him, not a speck of dust on his jacket. Deidara stared. Then he grinned wider. C3. The massive clay sculpture dropped from Deidara's bird, a creation the size of a building, packed with enough explosive force to level a small town. It fell toward Naruto like a bomb, and when it detonated, the blast radius consumed the entire valley. The explosion was objectively spectacular. Fire mushroomed upward. The shockwave flattened trees for half a mile. The ground cratered. It was loud and bright and impressive, and Deidara loved every second of it because this was his art. This was his purpose. This was the purest expression of his soul. The fire cleared. Naruto was standing in the crater, hands in his pockets, looking at the smoke with mild curiosity, the way someone might look at a mildly interesting cloud formation. "Is this your art?" he asked. "It's loud." Deidara's grin faltered. Not much, but the edges went uncertain. "C4," he screamed. The microbombs. Invisible, molecular, the microscopic explosive particles that could be inhaled and would detonate inside a target's body at the cellular level. Deidara's secret weapon, the technique that attacked from the inside, that could not be dodged or blocked because the explosions happened within. The invisible particles drifted toward Naruto, surrounded him, entered the air around his body. They touched his aura and evaporated. Not detonated, evaporated. The godly ki field that Naruto emitted as a passive, constant, unconscious expression of his divine nature did not interact with the C4 particles as explosives. It interacted with them as matter that was trespassing. The particles ceased to exist on contact with the barrier between Naruto and everything that was not Naruto. Deidara watched his invisible, undetectable, theoretically perfect assassination technique diss into the purple shimmer around the kid like sugar dissolving in hot tea. "That's not possible," Deidara whispered. "You keep using that word," Naruto said. "Possible. It doesn't apply here." Deidara's eye went wide. Then it went calm. Then it went to a place beyond calm. The quiet, resigned, absolute peace of a man who had one card left and had decided to play it. C0. He tore open his shirt. The mouth on his chest, the extra mouth, the one that existed because Deidara's relationship with the concept of a normal human body was purely theoretical, opened wide. Deidara fed it his remaining clay. All of it. Every last gram. The technique that turned the user into a bomb. The final art. The explosion that consumed the artist along with everything within a 10-kilometer radius. Deidara began to glow. His body became light. The energy built and built and built, compressing and compounding, reaching critical mass. "This is my ultimate art," Deidara screamed, tears streaming down his face, tears of ecstasy, of completion, of a man who was about to become the explosion he had always worshipped. "This is what I was born for. This will destroy everything." Naruto watched it build. He tilted his head. Hakai. He raised one hand. An orb of purple light, small, the size of a golf ball, left his palm and floated gently toward the detonating Deidara. It touched the explosion at the exact moment of ignition. The C0 detonation, the 10-kilometer erasure bomb, the final art, the suicide technique, was erased, not countered, not absorbed, not contained, erased. The energy that had been building to a blast radius capable of reshaping geography was simply removed from existence at the point of manifestation. The explosion that was supposed to be everything became nothing, literally nothing. A vacuum where energy had been, collapsing silently inward. Deidara hung in the air. His body had not exploded. The clay had been consumed. The technique had activated. But the result, the art, the bang, the beautiful destruction, was gone, replaced by empty space and silence. The silence was profound, not quiet, not stillness. The active, physical silence of a place where a massive sound was supposed to be and wasn't. Deidara stared at the space where his masterpiece had existed for a fraction of a second. "What is that?" he said, very quietly. The manic energy was gone. The artistic fervor was gone. What was left was a man looking at the absence of his life's work and trying to find a word for it. "That's not art. That's just nothing. There's nothing there." "Exactly," Naruto said. He appeared in front of Deidara. The bomber, body intact but clay depleted, hovered on the remnants of his technique. Naruto floated beside him. Pressure point attack. One tap. Index finger to the base of Deidara's skull. The blonde bomber's eyes rolled back and he crumpled, unconscious before gravity took him. Naruto caught him, held him by the back of his cloak, looked at the unconscious face, peaceful for once. The permanent manic grin relaxed into something almost normal. "You're not interesting enough to destroy," Naruto said, "but the explosions were pretty. 6 out of 10. He delivered Deidara to Konoha, dropped him off at the intelligence division like a package. The chunin at the intake desk stared at the unconscious Akatsuki member lying on the floor. "Processing?" she asked, because she was a professional and professionalism was all she had in this moment. "He's an artist," Naruto said. "Give him clay. The non-exploding kind." He left. Sasori's encounter happened the same week. The puppet master had been tracking Naruto since Deidara's defeat, not to fight but to observe. Sasori was, at his core, a craftsman. He wanted to understand the mechanism, the technique, the engineering of whatever the Uzumaki boy was. He understood nothing because there was nothing to understand. It wasn't a technique, it was a nature. Sasori revealed himself in a forest clearing, emerging from his Hiruko puppet shell, the hunched, armored disguise that hid his true form. He stood in the open, his real body exposed. Young, beautiful, made entirely of puppet parts except for the single canister in his chest that held his living heart. Around him, 100 puppets rose on chakra strings. His red secret technique, the performance of 100 puppets, his masterwork, the technique that had conquered a nation. "I don't want to fight," Sasori said, because Sasori was many things but stupid was not one of them. "I want to understand." Naruto looked at the 100 puppets. He looked at Sasori. "There's nothing to understand. I exist. That's the technique." Sasori pulled his strings, not to attack, to test. He sent a single puppet forward, a probe, armed with poison blades. The puppet crossed into Naruto's ambient field. The chakra strings connecting it to Sasori dissolved, not cut, dissolved. The godly ki erased the thin filaments of chakra the way sunlight erases mist. The puppet dropped, dead weight, wood and metal and nothing else. Sasori's fingers twitched. He sent another, same result, another, same result. Every puppet that entered Naruto's radius dropped like its strings had been cut by an invisible hand, because they had been. Sasori stood among his fallen army. 100 puppets, 100 masterworks of craft and ingenuity, and decades of obsessive refinement, all of them lying on the ground like discarded toys. He felt something cold in his core. Not fear. Sasori had removed most of his capacity for human emotion, along with most of his human body, but something adjacent to fear. Something his remaining heart recognized, even if his puppet brain could not name it. Naruto walked forward, through the fallen puppets, stepping over them, around them, through the field of dead marionettes like a man walking through a bead curtain. Each step casual, each step unhurried. He stopped in front of Sasori. "You turned yourself into a puppet," Naruto observed. "To escape death. To achieve eternity," Sasori corrected. "Eternity is overrated." Naruto's purple eyes flickered with something old, something that had experienced eternity firsthand and found it wanting. "Trust me." Pressure point attack. One tap. Sasori crumpled. The puppeteer who had feared death so badly he had replaced his own body to escape it was put to sleep by a god who knew that eternity was not the gift people imagined. Naruto delivered him to Konoha too. The intelligence division was running out of holding cells. Hidan found out 6 weeks later, and it remains the single funniest intelligence report in the history of Konoha's archives. The Jashinist tracked Naruto to a road outside the village. Hidan was everything his reputation promised: loud, vulgar, immortal, and possessed of a conviction in his own divine backing that could only be described as weapons-grade delusion. "Lord Jashin demands your power!" Hidan screamed, triple-bladed scythe swinging in the afternoon light. "When I sacrifice you, I'll receive blessings beyond." "What's a Jashin?" Naruto asked. Hidan's rant stuttered. What do you mean? What's a Jashin?" "He's the god of slaughter. The divine." "Never heard of him." The casual dismissal of his deity, delivered with the flat disinterest of someone who had actually been a god and did not recognize the name from any divine registry, made Hidan's face turn the color of his ritual circle. He attacked. The scythe drew blood, a scratch along Naruto's forearm because Naruto allowed it. He was curious. The scratch healed in under a second, the godly ki stitching the cells back together reflexively, but a drop of blood flew and landed on the scythe's blade. Hidan grinned. He licked the blood. His skin went black and white. The ritual form, the Jashin connection. He drew his circle. He stood in its center. "Now we're linked!" Hidan screamed with the joy of a man who believed he had just won. He pulled out his retractable spike. He plunged it into his own chest and waited. Naruto stood there. He looked down at his own chest. He looked at Hidan. He looked at the spike protruding from Hidan's sternum. "Was that supposed to do something?" Naruto asked. Hidan stared. The ritual was active. His form was transformed. The circle was drawn. The blood connection was established. Everything was correct. Everything was exactly right. And nothing was happening. Because the Jashin ritual operated on the link between mortal life forces. It tethered two mortal existences together and transferred damage between them. It required mortality as its medium. The shared fragility of living things that could be hurt and killed. Naruto carried the soul of a god of destruction. His life force was not mortal. It was not fragile. It did not participate in the framework that Hidan's ritual operated under. The ritual reached across the blood connection, found what was on the other end, and encountered something so far outside its operational parameters that it simply did not engage. Like plugging a lamp into a thunderbolt. The connection existed. The scale did not match. Hidan stabbed himself again, and again. 3 times. 4. Each wound healed on his immortal body, and Naruto stood unmarked and mildly confused. "Your religion needs better gods," Naruto said. He picked Hidan up by the collar. The Jashinist, still stabbing himself in increasingly desperate locations, screamed obscenities and promises of divine retribution. Naruto flew, straight up, then north, fast. Hidan's screaming became increasingly high-pitched as the altitude and speed increased. They reached a mountain range in the far north of the continent. Naruto found a crevasse, deep, dark, with walls of granite that disappeared into blackness so complete it seemed to have a personality. He dropped Hidan in. Hidan fell, his screams Doppler downward. They got quieter and quieter, and then they were gone. Naruto landed at the edge of the crevasse. He raised one hand. Hakai. A pulse of purple light hit the rock face on either side. The granite walls fused together, sealed shut at the molecular level by destruction energy applied in reverse. Not erasing the rock, but erasing the space between the rocks, forcing them together into a seamless, unbreakable seal. "Stay," Naruto said. He flew home. He got ramen. Kakashi learned about it the next day from the mission report that Naruto did not write, but that the Anbu surveillance team who had been shadowing him at a respectful distance, composed with the careful, stunned prose of people who had witnessed something they would need therapy to process. Kakashi read the report. He sat down. He read it again. He dropped an immortal zealot into a bottomless crevasse and sealed it shut. Kakashi said, with a single tap, the Anbu captain, and then he got ramen. Extra egg. Kakashi put the report down. He looked at the ceiling. He thought about his career choices. "I need a vacation," he said. Denied. Minato's voice called from the next room. Minato had hearing like a fox and a policy of denying Kakashi's requests as a form of ongoing comedy. The Akatsuki was bleeding members. Deidara captured, Sasori captured, Hidan buried, Kasame hospitalized and reconsidering his hobbies. The organization that had terrorized the shinobi world was being dismantled by a teenager who treated each encounter like a chore between meals. Toby accelerated his timeline. He had no choice. The plan required the Nine Tails. The Nine Tails was inside a god. Half measures would not suffice. He sent pain. The assault on Konoha began at 11:47 a.m. on a Thursday. Naruto remembered the time precisely because he had been 20 minutes into a special order ramen, Tochi's newest recipe, a double broth blend that Naruto had been anticipating for 3 days. When the first explosion hit, 6 bodies descended on the village simultaneously. The 6 paths of pain, the animal path, the human path, the Asura path, the Preta path, the Naraka path, and the Deva path, landed in different sections of Konoha and began their assault with the coordinated precision of a single mind operating 6 weapons. Buildings fell. Streets cratered. The alarm sirens screamed. And at Ichiraku Ramen, Naruto Uzumaki looked at his bowl. The broth was rippling from the explosions. A piece of chashu had slid off his chopsticks from the vibration. His eye twitched. "Seriously," he said. He sealed the bowl in a preservation scroll. Tochi and Ayame had already ducked behind the counter. Naruto placed the scroll in his jacket pocket with the reverence of a man securing a family heirloom. He walked out into the street. Konoha was on fire. 3 sections of the village wall had been breached. Shinobi were mobilizing in every direction. Civilians ran screaming toward the shelters. The Asura path was firing missile-like projectiles from its body into the commercial district. The animal path was summoning massive creatures that rampaged through the residential areas. The Deva path, the central body, the one with Yahiko's face and Nagato's will, was hovering above the village center, surveying the destruction with Rinnegan eyes that saw everything. All 6 paths turned toward Naruto simultaneously. They could sense him. The Nine-Tails signature was unmistakable, but underneath it, beneath the expected Biju energy, they felt something else. Something their shared Rinnegan could not classify. Naruto stood in the middle of the main street. He had a takeout container of ramen and a scroll in his pocket, and 6 Rinnegan-wielding bodies converging on his position from 6 different directions. He looked at the lead path, the Deva path, floating above, arms spread, gravity manipulation bending the air around him. "I was eating," Naruto said. His voice carried across the burning street with the flat, cosmic calm of someone who had decided that whatever came next was going to be brief and decisive. "My ramen is getting cold. I sealed it, but even sealed, the texture degrades after 20 minutes. You have cost me texture." The Deva path raised its hand. "Shinra Tensei." The gravitational pulse, the technique that had flattened entire sections of the village, that pushed everything away with the force of a natural disaster, erupted toward Naruto. It hit him. He did not move. The gravitational force, sufficient to level buildings, sufficient to reshape terrain, washed over Naruto like wind over stone. His jacket rippled. His hair moved. That was it. The Deva path's Rinnegan eyes flickered. Not with emotion. The paths didn't have emotions, but with recalculation. The technique had connected. The force had been applied, and the target had treated it like a breeze. All 6 paths converged. They attacked simultaneously, the coordinated assault of 6 bodies sharing one sight, one mind, one perfect tactical awareness. The Asura path fired, the animal path summoned, the human path and Preta path flanked, the Naraka path supported. The Deva path controlled gravity. Naruto set down his ramen. He actually bent down, placed the takeout container on the ground, and straightened up. The container was more important than the fight. He acknowledged this openly and without shame. He closed his eyes. Wrath of the god of destruction. The omnidirectional ki explosion erupted from his body like a second sun being born. Purple light filled every street, every alley, every corner of the visible village. The shockwave was not wind. It was pressure. Raw, divine, undeniable. It hit the 6 paths of pain simultaneously and launched them skyward, all 6. At once, the animal path crashed through the academy roof and out the other side, embedding in the training field a quarter-mile away. The Asura path's mechanical body was dented so severely that 3 of its 6 arms locked in place. The human path hit the Hokage monument and left a dent in the second Hokage's stone chin. The Prita path, the Naraka path, and the Deva path were scattered across the village like thrown toys, each one carving trenches in the streets where they landed. The village shook. Dust rose. The sirens kept wailing. The paths got back up. That was the thing about pain. The bodies were already dead. They were puppets, corpses animated by Nagato's chakra, channeled through receivers controlled remotely. You could break them. You could throw them. You could hit them with the force of a divine explosion. They would get back up. They would always get back up because the damage was to vessels that were already empty. Naruto watched them rise. He watched the coordinated reconstruction, the Naraka path using the King of Hell to repair damaged bodies, the formation re-establishing itself, 6 pairs of Rinnegan eyes locking onto him again. He picked up his ramen container. He closed his eyes again. Not to focus, not to gather power, to reach. His divine key sense, the awareness that existed on a plane above chakra, above sage energy, above anything the shinobi world had ever classified, extended outward from his body like ripples on water. Past the village walls, past the forest, past the mountains, he found Nagato, 300 kilometers away. In a construct of paper and steel, hidden in the rain, connected to his paths by threads of chakra that spanned the distance like puppet strings on a continental scale. Naruto opened his eyes. He looked northwest, past the buildings, past the horizon. Directly at a spot that no normal sense could perceive, Konan was there. He could feel her too. Paper and devotion, and rain, and a grief so deep it had become architecture. "Tell your friend to come out," Naruto said, and it is not through sound, through pressure, through the key that reached across the distance and delivered his words directly to the place where Nagato sat in his mechanical walker, rod thin and dying and desperate. "I am not destroying proxy dolls. I find it rude." In the hidden chamber, Nagato heard the words as clearly as if the boy were standing beside him. He heard them in his chest, in his bones, in the Rinnegan themselves, which vibrated with a frequency they had never encountered. Konan stood beside him. Her eyes were wide. She had felt the pressure too. "He knows where we are," she said. "From 300 kilometers away, he found us." Nagato was quiet for a long time. The paths, still deployed in Konoha, stood motionless, 6 bodies in a burning village waiting for instructions that weren't coming. "If I go," Nagato said slowly, "he will kill me." "Maybe," Konan said. "If I do not go, he will come here, and the result will be the same." "Maybe." Nagato looked at his hands, the thin, wasted fingers, the rods in his back, the body that was dying by inches, that had been dying since the day he used the Rinnegan to kill the people who killed Yahiko. "Pain is supposed to teach," he said. "That was the purpose. That was the theology. Pain creates understanding. Understanding creates peace." He closed his eyes. What does a god who does not feel pain understand? "Go and ask him." Nagato went. He arrived in Konoha 2 hours later. Konan carried his walker. The 6 paths escorted them, battered, dented, but functional. They walked through the ruined gates, past the shell-shocked defenders, through streets still smoking from the assault. Naruto was waiting in the crater that the Deva Path's Shinra Tensei had created in the village center. He was sitting on a piece of rubble, eating his ramen. The preservation scroll had held. The broth was still warm. The noodles had degraded slightly, but he would take what he could get. Nagato's walker settled across from him. The 6 paths arranged themselves in formation. Konan hovered above, paper wings spread, eyes tracking every movement. "You are the god," Nagato said. "I'm eating," Naruto replied. "You are a god, a real one, not a concept, not a metaphor, an actual divine being in a human body." Naruto slurped a noodle. "I'm a guy who likes ramen and was having a very good day until 6 dead people knocked over my favorite food stall." Nagato stared. The Rinnegan, the eyes of the sage of 6 paths, the eyes that saw all of creation, stared at this blonde teenager eating noodles in a crater and tried to reconcile what they perceived with what they understood. "Pain is the truth of the world," Nagato said. The words came from a deep place, the place where Yahiko's death lived, where Jiraiya's teaching had been twisted, where a philosophy of suffering had calcified into theology. If there is a god, then the god should understand pain. The god should know what it means to lose everything. The god should... "I lost everything," Naruto said. He said it quietly, between noodles, not dramatic, not performative, just a fact placed on the ground between them like a stone. I lost a universe, a planet that was mine, a companion I can't fully remember, an existence that made sense. He set down his chopsticks, those purple eyes, cat-like and ancient, focused on Nagato with something that was sympathy and not pity and not understanding. Something older, something that had experienced loss on a scale that made Nagato's grief look like a footnote. Your pain is real, Naruto said. I'm not dismissing it. Your friend died. Your teacher failed you. The world hurt you and you decided to hurt it back. I've seen civilizations do the same thing. A flicker in those eyes, a fragment of memory. I've destroyed some of them. Silence. But you're dying, Naruto continued. And your plan doesn't work. And you know it doesn't work. You've known since you killed Yahiko's body and used it as a puppet. You knew then that pain wasn't teaching anyone anything. Pain was just pain. And you kept going because stopping would mean admitting you'd been wrong, and being wrong would mean Yahiko died for nothing. And that thought is worse than any technique I could use against you. Nagato's hands were shaking, not from his condition. From the experience of having every carefully constructed wall around his grief systematically identified and described by someone eating ramen. You are not the super shinobi god either, Naruto said. But you're not nothing. He stood. He walked across the crater. He stood before Nagato, this dying, brilliant, tortured man in his mechanical prison, and raised one hand. Sealing technique. Divine. The energy that flowed from Naruto's palm was not destructive. It was the other aspect of his divine nature, the part that could create stability, that could enforce order, that could take something broken and hold it in place. The Hakai could erase. But the god who wielded Hakai also governed balance. Destruction was not random. It served structure, the divine seal wrapped around Nagato's failing body. It did not heal. Naruto was not a healer, but it stabilized. It held the collapsing systems in place. It pulled Nagato back from the edge where death had been reaching for him for years and said, "Not yet." Nagato gasped. Color returned to his face. His arms, stick-thin, filled with something that was not strength, but was the absence of active deterioration. He was still damaged, still frail, but no longer dying. "Eat something," Naruto said. "You look terrible." He went back to his ramen. Konan landed beside Nagato. She was crying. The paper wings dissolved into ordinary sheets that fell around them like a quiet snowfall. "Why?" Nagato asked, the word cracked coming out of his mouth. "Why save me? I just attacked your village." Naruto considered this while chewing. "You reminded me of someone," he said finally. "Someone who was in pain and needed a purpose and found the wrong one. I don't remember who, but I remember the feeling." He paused. "Also, your speech was decent. 7 out of 10. You lost points for the dead puppet thing. That was weird." Nagato stared. Then his mouth moved. It took a moment. It had been a very long time since the muscles required for this particular expression had been used. He laughed. It was quiet and broken and wrong in all the ways that a first laugh after years of suffering is wrong. And it was the most honest sound Nagato had made in a decade. The 6 paths of pain went still. Their Rinnegan eyes dimmed. The connection was released. 6 corpses settled to the ground, finally and properly dead. Naruto sat in his walker in a crater in the village he had just attacked, laughing and crying simultaneously. And the god who had saved him went back to his noodles, because the texture degradation was now officially past acceptable levels, and he needed to eat fast. The Akatsuki splintered after that. Nagato withdrew his support. Konan followed. The two of them disappeared into the reign of Amigakure and began the long, strange process of figuring out what a life looked like when it wasn't built on pain. Toby watched from a distance through his spy networks and recalibrated every plan he had ever made. The timetable moved up. The subtlety dropped away. There was no longer time for careful manipulation. It was time for direct action. Obito Uchiha appeared before Naruto 3 weeks later. No mask, no tricks. He materialized from Kamui in the middle of Training Ground 7, where Naruto was lying on his back watching clouds and thinking about a dream he'd had about a fish that tasted like music. "I know what you are," Obito said. Naruto didn't sit up. "Good for you." Obito told his story. Not everything, but the keystones: Rin, the cave, Madara, the plan, the infinite Tsukuyomi. A world where everyone dreams forever, And no one feels pain and no one loses the person they love because reality itself is rewritten to prevent it. Naruto listened the whole way through. He didn't interrupt. He lay on the grass with his arms behind his head and his eyes half closed. And the only indication that he was paying attention was the slight movement of his pupils tracking the clouds as Obito spoke. When Obito finished, Naruto opened one eye. "You want to trap everyone in a dream?" "Yes, including me?" The air changed, not dramatically, not violently. It was more like the temperature dropping 1 degree, imperceptible unless you were paying attention, but unmistakable if you were. "Yes," Obito said, "everyone, including you." Naruto closed his eye. "No." Obito activated Kamui. The technique was elegant, a space-time ninjutsu that allowed the user to become intangible by shifting parts of their body to another dimension and to transport targets into that same pocket dimension through visual contact. It was nearly unbeatable. It was the technique that had made Obito a ghost among shinobi. The swirling distortion reached toward Naruto. The dimensional boundary opened. Kamui's pull attempted to find purchase on Naruto's body and transport it to the pocket dimension. It found nothing to grip. The technique touched Naruto's form and slid around it like water around oil. His body was there, solid, physical, lying on the grass, but the dimensional mechanics of Kamui could not interact with it. Godly ki did not exist in the framework that Kamui operated under. Kamui manipulated space-time through chakra-based dimensional folding. Naruto's fundamental composition included something that chakra-based dimensional folding had no authority over. Obito's hand passed through Naruto's body. Not because Naruto was intangible, because Kamui was irrelevant. The technique functioned. It hit nothing. There was a physical body present and a dimensional technique active, and the two simply did not interface. Obito stared at his own hand. He tried again. Same result. And again. Naruto opened both eyes, fully violet, fully cat-like. The slitted pupils contracted to needle points. He sat up. He stood. The lazy posture was gone. The slouch was gone. For the first time since Obito had appeared, Naruto looked at him directly. "I'll give you one chance," Naruto said. "Walk away from this plan. Go eat something. Find something real to care about." Obito's Mangekyo Sharingan spun. The eye that had defined his existence. The eye that had let him become a ghost, a manipulator, a shadow that moved the world from behind. His hand went to the chain around his neck, Rin's pendant. "Rin is dead," Obito said. "The world killed her. The system killed her. If the system can kill someone like Rin, then the system is broken and I will replace it." "She wouldn't want this," Naruto said. "You didn't know her." "I know what it's like to lose someone important. I know the way it sits in your chest like a coal that won't go out. And I know that building a fake world where the loss never happened doesn't fix the loss. It just means you never deal with it." Naruto's voice was flat, not gentle, not harsh, diagnostic. "You're running from grief and calling it a plan." Obito's face contorted. Grief and rage and years of self-justification warring across features that hadn't been seen by another person in decades. "No," Obito said. Naruto nodded. He had offered. The offer had been declined. That was the end of the conversation. Pressure point attack. He moved. Not at any speed Obito could track. The Mangekyo saw a blur, a suggestion of motion, and then Naruto's index finger was pressing against a specific point on Obito's neck. A point that intersected the primary chakra pathway feeding his Mangekyo Sharingan. A point that, when disrupted by divine pressure, did not just block chakra flow but collapsed the entire network branch. Kamui's dimensional anchor destabilized. Obito's intangibility failed. His body became fully solid for the first time in years. And in that moment of solidity, the pressure from Naruto's finger cascaded through his nervous system and shut it down. Obito collapsed. His Sharingan deactivated. His body went limp. He hit the grass face first with the quiet finality of someone whose plans had just ended. Naruto looked at the unconscious man. He tilted his head. "You could have been something," he said quietly. "Instead, you chose to be a ghost." He picked Obito up by the back of his cloak and delivered him to Konoha's maximum security detention facility. Minato was informed. In his office, the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, the fastest man alive, the genius who had sealed a demon and survived a death god and governed a village for 15 years, put his face in his hands. On the wall behind his desk was a portrait of Kushina. She was smiling. She was always smiling in that portrait. Minato looked at her painted face through his fingers. "Why?" he asked the portrait. "Why is our son like this?" The portrait did not answer. "He dropped off an S-rank missing nin the way someone drops off dry cleaning," Minato continued, "to no one. He said, 'Here's the shadow leader of Akatsuki,' and asked if the cafeteria had ramen today." The portrait continued, not answering. Minato put his head on his desk and stayed there for a while. But Tobi's capture had not stopped the machine he'd set in motion. Kabuto Yakushi, the snake's apprentice, the heir to Orochimaru's ambitions, had been operating independently, and his contribution to the coming war was about to arrive. The Fourth Great Ninja War began because men who feared the future decided to control it, and because the machinery of conflict, once started, does not care whether its architects are still present. Kabuto's Edo Tensei army rose. Thousands of dead shinobi, resurrected and bound, marching toward the living. The allied shinobi forces, all 5 great nations united for the first time in history, mobilized to meet them. And at the center of it all, like a boulder in a river, Naruto walked onto the battlefield and the river parted around him. The divisions fought. The battles raged. The war moved across the continent like a storm. And through all of it, Naruto moved at his own pace, dealing with threats as they appeared, eating when he could, sleeping when nothing interesting was happening. He was not a soldier. He was not a weapon. He was a force of nature that the war happened around, and every time that force decided to engage, the engagement ended. And then the real Madara arrived, Kabuto's masterpiece, the ultimate Edo Tensei. Madara Uchiha, the actual one, the legend, the ghost story that other ghost stories told each other, descended onto the 4th Division's battlefield like a comet wearing armor. He was magnificent. There was no other word. Madara Uchiha stood on air in his crimson armor, gunbai in hand, Rinnegan blazing in one eye, and eternal Mangekyo Sharingan in the other, and he surveyed the army before him with the casual contempt of someone who had fought wars before these soldiers' grandparents were born. "Is this what passes for an army?" Madara said, and his voice carried across the plateau like it was having a conversation with the wind. "I'm disappointed." He activated perfect Susanoo. The ethereal warrior materialized around him, colossal, armored, burning with blue-purple chakra. A being of pure energy the size of a mountain, with a blade that could split landscapes, and a presence that made the earth itself groan, he swung. The 4th Division, 10,000 shinobi, was swept aside. Not killed, swept. The Susanoo's blade carved a trench through the battlefield, and the shockwave sent an entire army tumbling like leaves. Formations broke, defenses crumbled. Thousands of the strongest shinobi in the world were reduced to scattered, disoriented chaos by a single swing from a dead man who was enjoying himself. Madara began his speech. He loved speeches. He had given them in life, and he gave them in death with the same practiced cadence of a man who believed his words deserved an audience. "This world is broken," Madara announced, Susanoo glowing behind him, the divided army scrambling at his feet. "It has always been broken. War, hatred, loss. The cycle repeats because humans cannot stop it. The Eye of the Moon plan will..." He stopped, mid-sentence, mid-word. His mouth was open. The sentence dangled in the air, unfinished, because the key that had just reached his senses was not shinobi chakra. It was not sage energy. It was not Six Paths power. It was something that predated all of those frameworks and existed in a taxonomy that had no human name. Madara turned. Naruto walked onto the battlefield. The armies on both sides, allied shinobi and Edo Tensei alike, stepped back. Not consciously, not deliberately. Their bodies moved before their minds could object, the way animals move away from a landslide. A clearing formed, a circle of empty space around the approaching figure, widening with each step as 10,000 combatants decided independently and simultaneously that proximity to the blonde teenager with the purple eyes was not where they wanted to be. "You're Madara," Naruto said, "the one they're all so scared of." Madara looked at him. The Rinnegan analyzed. The Mangekyo computed. Both eyes, legendary and stolen and wielded by the greatest shinobi who ever lived, studied the boy walking toward him and encountered data that did not fit any model. "And you are the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki they said I should be cautious about," Madara replied. His voice had changed. Subtly, The theatrical contempt was gone. What replaced it was something rarer, genuine interest. "I'm hungry," Naruto said. "Can we do this quickly?" Madara smiled. It was a small smile, private, the smile of a man who had fought everyone worth fighting and beaten them all, and spent decades of death waiting for something that might be worth his full attention. "Quick," Madara said. "Yes, let's see." He moved, full power. No testing, no probing, no cautious engagement. Madara Uchiha at his absolute peak, perfect Susanoo materialized and swung, its blade descending toward Naruto with the force of a mountain falling sideways. Naruto caught it. One hand, palm up. The Susanoo's blade, a weapon of pure chakra, dense enough to cut through anything in the shinobi world, swung with the full force of Madara's legendary power, hit Naruto's open palm, and stopped. The ground beneath Naruto cratered. Concentric rings of shattered earth spread outward for 100 meters. The air compressed and detonated in a shockwave that knocked the nearest soldiers off their feet. The Susanoo's blade vibrated against Naruto's palm, straining, pushing with everything it had. Naruto closed his fist around it. The blade cracked, not the physical blade, the concept. The chakra construct that formed the Susanoo's weapon fractured along lines that had nothing to do with structural integrity and everything to do with being touched by something that erased things for a living. Madara's eyes widened. Fraction of an inch. Anyone else wouldn't have noticed, but on Madara Uchiha's face, that fraction was seismic. God of Destruction's rampage. Naruto vanished. Not moved, not flickered. Vanished. And then he was inside the perfect Susanoo, not fighting it. Inside it. He had moved through the barrier, through the construct that was supposed to be impenetrable, that was supposed to be the ultimate defense, that no shinobi in history had ever breached, like passing through a curtain. Violet light blazed. Naruto's fists, wreathed in Hakai energy, struck the Susanoo from the inside. Each hit sent cracks cascading through the ethereal warrior's body. Each impact erased a piece of the construct. He moved through it like light through glass, and everywhere he touched, the perfect Susanoo, Madara Uchiha's crowning technique, came apart. The Susanoo shattered. From the outside, it looked like a purple sun had been born inside the blue-purple warrior and consumed it from within. The ethereal armor, the colossal body, the mountain-sized weapon, all of it dissolved into fading chakra particles that fell across the battlefield like luminous snow. Madara dropped. Without his Susanoo, without the construct that had let him stand on air, he fell toward the ground. Naruto appeared below him. One open palm. Ki. The invisible shockwave hit Madara at point-blank range and launched him through the nearest mountain, through it. The entire geological formation, a granite peak that had stood for 10,000 years, split down the middle and collapsed as Madara's body carved a tunnel through its heart and out the other side. Rubble cascaded. Dust clouds rose. The battlefield had gained a new canyon where a mountain had been. Madara stood on the other side. He was bleeding. From the corner of his mouth, from a cut across his forehead, from the places where his resurrected body had been damaged past the Edo Tensei's regeneration speed. He looked at his own hand, at the blood, false blood. Construct blood, the Edo Tensei's approximation of vitality, on his pale fingers. He was bleeding. No one had made Madara Uchiha bleed since Hashirama Senju. He almost smiled. "So there is someone," he said quietly. And Naruto, standing across the new canyon, purple aura flickering around him like heat haze, actually looked at Madara. Really looked. For the first time. Not through him, not past him, not at him as background noise. At him. "You're close," Naruto said, "but not quite." He crossed the distance, not flying, walking, across the rubble of the collapsed mountain, over the shattered stone, through the settling dust. Each step deliberate. Each step carrying the weight of a judgment being delivered. Madara met his eyes. The Rinnegan and the Manjikyo blazed. Every technique in his legendary arsenal cycled through his mind. The meteor, the wood style, the limbo clones, the gravitational pull. He had options. He always had options. None of them mattered. He knew it. Looking at those violet, cat-like eyes crossing the battlefield toward him, Madara Uchiha knew with the certainty of someone who had spent a lifetime understanding power that the gap between himself and this boy was not the gap between strong and stronger. It was the gap between mortal and divine. Hakai. Naruto raised one hand, not aimed at Madara, aimed at the space around him. The Hakai energy did not target the legendary shinobi himself. It targeted the Edo Tensei binding, the technique that kept Madara anchored to the living world, that made him immortal and regenerating and endless. The forbidden jutsu woven into his resurrected form, the Hakai found every thread of Kabuto's technique, every strand of the impure world reincarnation that maintained Madara's false existence, and it burned them. Precisely, surgically, like a jeweler removing a setting from a stone. The immortality stripped away, the regeneration stopped, the Edo Tensei's hold released. Madara's body, still there, still solid, but now mortal, now finite, now subject to the same rules as everything else, settled into its own weight. Madara fell to one knee, not from pain, from the sudden, vertiginous experience of being mortal again after existing as an unkillable construct. The ground felt different, the air felt different. Everything felt sharp and immediate and temporary. Naruto crouched down to his level. Those ancient eyes met the Rinnegan at equal height. "You wanted to be a god," Naruto said. "You were the closest a human ever got. I respect it." He touched Madara's shoulder. Not a pressure point attack, just a touch. The simple physical contact of one hand on another's armor. But this ends now. Naruto stood. He raised both hands. A sealing matrix materialized in the air. Not the ink and paper constructs of shinobi fuinjutsu, but something drawn in violet light, in geometries that didn't correspond to any sealing tradition in the elemental nations. Divine sealing. The technique he had used on Nagato, expanded, deepened, finalized. The seal descended on Madara. The greatest shinobi legend of all time, the man who had fought Hashirama, who had cheated death, who had orchestrated wars from beyond the grave, was contained, sealed, not erased, not destroyed, contained with the respectful finality of someone putting a masterwork into a vault. The battlefield was silent. 10,000 shinobi, the entire 4th Division plus reinforcements from the 2nd and 3rd, stood in the wreckage of a fight that had reshaped the terrain and lasted less than 2 minutes. The 5 Kage, Tsunade, Ei, Onoki, Mei, Gaara, stood on a ridge overlooking the battlefield. They had arrived during the fight. They had seen the whole thing. Tsunade, the 5th Hokage serving as field commander, sat down on the ridge. Her legs had given out, not from injury, from the accumulated shock of watching her village's most problematic teenager dismantle the most powerful shinobi in history like someone folding laundry. "Did he just..." Onoki started. "Yes," said. "Without..." "Yes." Gaara said nothing. He watched Naruto walk through the battlefield, soldiers parting around him, and felt the old memory stir, a poke on the forehead, a voice telling him to eat something. The moment his life had changed, Meitarumi sipped water from a canteen and said, "I should have sent a bigger gift basket." The shinobi who had witnessed it wrote their reports. The reports were filed. The reports were read by intelligence officers who read them twice and then went for long walks. The grandchildren would hear the stories. The stories would grow. And no version of the story, however embellished, would be more spectacular than what had actually happened. And then Kaguya emerged. It happened fast, faster than anyone could have predicted, because Black Zetsu had been moving in the shadows since before the war began. The creature that had manipulated shinobi history for 1,000 years, that had twisted Indra, that had corrupted Madara, that had arranged every major conflict in a millennia-long chess game to revive its mother, made its final move. The god tree erupted. The Ten Tails' power, gathered from the tailed beasts that Kabuto's forces had partially captured before Naruto's intervention disrupted the collection schedule, was insufficient for a full revival. So Black Zetsu improvised. It used what it had, fragments, echoes, the residual chakra of the divine tree, and forced a partial manifestation. Kaguya Otsutsuki descended from a tear in reality. Not at full power, not complete, but present, enormous, ancient, the sky shattered. Not metaphorically. The actual sky split open like a wound, and through the gap, a dimension that was not this dimension became visible. A barren, cold, alien space that smelled like old chakra and abandoned divinity. Kaguya floated in the breach. White hair cascading for meters. 3 eyes, the Byakugan and the Rinne Sharingan, the original eye, the eye from which all dojutsu descended. She was beautiful in the way extinction events are beautiful, the kind of beauty that accompanies the end of things. The shinobi world had just met its origin. The mother of chakra, The being who had eaten the god tree's fruit and become the first wielder of power in this dimension. Her gaze swept the battlefield. Every shinobi she looked at felt it, the weight of being seen by something that considered the entire concept of shinobi as a divergent branch of her own legacy. They were all her children, in a sense, and she was very, very disappointed in them. "This world," Kaguya said, and her voice resonated at a frequency that made the ground hum, "is mine." Reality shifted. The dimensional transfer, Kaguya's signature technique, the ability to move herself and everything around her into one of her personal dimensions, activated. The battlefield changed. The familiar terrain disappeared. What replaced it was a landscape of bone-white towers and a sky that was not a sky, but a ceiling, made of something that absorbed light. The shinobi army was scattered. The Kage were separated. The divisions were thrown into dimensional pockets that isolated them from each other. Naruto landed on one of the bone towers, alone. Kaguya floated above him. The Rinne Sharingan, the eye that held the original Genjutsu, the infinite Tsukuyomi, the dream that would consume the world, pulsed with red light. She looked at Naruto. Naruto looked at her. And then something happened that Kaguya did not expect. Naruto went still. Not his usual stillness, the lazy, half-asleep, couldn't be bothered stillness that defined his daily existence. This was different. This was the stillness of something locking into place. Something deep and fundamental and buried for 15 years finally reaching the surface. His divine memory cracked open. Not all of it. Not the full, uncompressed, universe-spanning lifetime of Lord Beerus, god of destruction of Universe 7. That would have destroyed his mortal brain. But enough. Enough to remember the shape of what he was. The purpose. The nature. He was not a shinobi with divine power. He was a god wearing a shinobi. He had been compressed. Living in a mortal frame with godly contents, the way a star might live inside a bottle. The bottle held. It had always held. But the contents had been pushing against the glass for 15 years, and now, in the face of something that actually reached toward his scale, the glass thinned, and Naruto stopped compressing. The aura came first. Not the casual violet haze that he had worn like an afterthought since birth. Something else. Deeper, darker. A royal purple so dense it seemed to have mass, rolling off his body in waves that made the dimensional space crack at the edges. The bone towers nearest to him developed fractures. The artificial sky above shuddered. His eyes went fully luminous. Not just violet, glowing, active. The cat-like pupils expanded and contracted and settled into a configuration that was not human and did not pretend to be. The energy built, not gathering, expanding, blooming outward like a sunrise viewed from too close, and the temperature of the dimension rose, and the very concept of the space Kaguya had created began to protest the presence of what was now standing inside it. Ultra ego, not ultra instinct. That was the defensive state, the flowing, reactive perfection that had moved his body since childhood. He had been using fragments of ultra instinct since the academy, his body dodging and weaving with divine reflex while his mind napped. Ultra ego was the other side of the coin, the offensive divine state, the full, unrestrained expression of a god of destruction inhabiting the nature of what they were. Where ultra instinct was water, fluid, adaptive, perfect in its passivity, ultra ego was pressure, absolute, building, escalating. Every hit taken made it stronger. Every moment of combat deepened the connection to the fundamental nature of destruction. Where ultra instinct made him untouchable, ultra ego made him the thing that touched. The aura settled, dark royal purple, dense enough to bend light, heavy enough to make the dimensional walls bulge outward like a balloon being inflated from inside. Naruto stood on the bone tower, and the tower was slowly disintegrating beneath him, not from attack but from proximity. The destruction energy in its passive state was sufficient to unmake the material of a god's dimension through simple contact. Kaguya felt it. The being who had been alive for millennia, who had consumed the god tree's fruit, who was the origin of all chakra in this world, felt the energy coming from the boy below her, and experienced something she had not felt since eating the fruit itself, awe. And under the awe, carefully buried but unmistakable, fear. "What are you?" she asked. The question echoed in the dimension. It was the same question everyone asked. It never got a better answer. Naruto looked up at her. The ultra ego aura pulsed. His voice, when he spoke, had something underneath it, a resonance, a depth, the faintest echo of a being who had once spoken, and planets had listened. "You were the first," he said. "I'll make this respectful." Kaguya attacked, expansive truth-seeking balls, the ultimate weapons, spheres of black energy that combined all 5 natures and yin-yang release, capable of erasing anything they touched at the molecular level. She launched them in a barrage, dozens of the world-ending projectiles screaming toward Naruto from every angle. Naruto raised one hand. Hakai. The Hakai energy met the truth-seeking balls head-on. Erasure met erasure. Destruction met destruction. And for one singular reality-bending moment, the dimensional space groaned as 2 annihilation energies collided and contested. The truth-seeking balls lost. Not because they were weak. They were the strongest offensive manifestation of chakra that existed in this world. They erased matter. They unmade jutsu. They were absolute, but Hakai was more absolute. Hakai was not the strongest version of a world's power system. Hakai was a universal constant, a fundamental force, the concept of ending made manifest, wielded by a being whose purpose was to end things. The truth-seeking balls were the pinnacle of this world's physics. Hakai existed outside this world's physics entirely. The black spheres dissolved, turned to ash, turned to nothing. The divine destruction energy consumed them and kept going, blazing toward Kaguya in a wave of purple light. Kaguya shifted dimensions. The attack hit empty space. She reappeared behind Naruto in a different section of her bone dimension and launched another assault. Gravity manipulation, space-time distortion, techniques that folded reality like paper and aimed the sharp edges at a single target. Naruto moved, Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego working in concert. The defensive perfection woven into the offensive pressure so that he flowed through her attacks like water while simultaneously striking with fists that carried the force of endings. He passed through her dimensional shifts like they were curtains. She moved the space. He existed in all of it simultaneously. She folded reality. His divine nature unfolded it. She attacked from angles that did not exist in 3-dimensional space. He operated in frameworks that included dimensions she couldn't access. He hit her. One strike. An open palm to the center of her chest. Ultra ego energy concentrated into a single point of impact. The strike carried the weight of a god, remembering what he was and expressing it through violence for the first time in this mortal life. Kaguya flew backward through her own dimension. She crashed through 7 bone towers, each one a structure the size of a skyscraper, and came to rest embedded in the dimensional wall itself, her body pressing against the boundary between this pocket reality and the void beyond. The wall cracked around her. She pulled herself free. Her regeneration, the immortal body's ability to recover from anything, was working, but slowly, slower than it should have been, because the damage wasn't just physical. The Hakai energy in Naruto's strike had erased some of her at a level deeper than cells. At the spiritual level, the level where immortality was encoded, she was healing, but she was healing less than she had been. Kaguya looked at Naruto across the ruined dimension. Her Rinne Sharingan blazed. She gathered everything she had, every ounce of power she had accumulated over millennia, every fragment of the God Tree's fruit, every technique, every dimensional trick, every weapon in her ancient, vast arsenal. She condensed it into a single attack. The dimension itself became the weapon. The bone towers, the artificial sky, the ground, the walls, all of it compressed toward Naruto from every direction simultaneously. A dimensional collapse. The entire pocket reality folding inward to crush a single target. Naruto stood at the center of the collapse, bone and stone and dimensional material closing in from every direction. The sky falling, the ground rising, the walls pressing inward. He raised both hands above his head. Beerus ball, sphere of destruction. The sphere formed, not the stadium-sized demonstration from the shonen exams, not a show. This was the real thing. A compressed star of divine destruction energy, burning dark purple and white at its core, radiating a force that made the collapsing dimension pause. The sphere grew. It pushed back against the dimensional collapse. It grew larger, brighter, denser. The destruction energy pulsed with a rhythm that was almost a heartbeat, the heartbeat of something that existed to end things and was, for the first time in this mortal life, fully expressing that nature. Naruto held the sphere above him. He held it against the collapsing dimension like a brand against flesh. "Enough," he said. Flat, final, the same tone he used to order ramen. The Beerus ball expanded. It consumed the dimensional collapse. It ate the bone towers, the artificial sky, the walls, the floor, everything Kaguya had weaponized. It consumed her pocket reality the way fire consumes paper, and what remained in its wake was not rubble but nothing. Clean, empty, infinite nothing. Kaguya hung in the void. Her dimension was gone. Her weapons were gone. Her truth-seeking balls were gone. She floated in the emptiness that Naruto had created by destroying everything she had built, and she stared at the boy, the god, with an expression that transcended fear. It was recognition. She had eaten a god fruit. She had gained power over a world. She had styled herself the origin, the mother, the beginning of everything. And now she was looking at the end of everything, and it was a 15-year-old boy with blonde hair and purple eyes who wanted to go home and eat noodles. Naruto powered down the Beerus ball. The sphere collapsed to a point and vanished. He floated toward Kaguya. The ultra ego aura still burned around him, dark and dense, but controlled now. Precise. He raised both hands. The ceiling matrix materialized. Divine geometry, violet light, patterns that had no origin in any human tradition. Sealing technique, divine. The seal was not the stabilizing technique he had used on Nagato. It was not the curse removal he had performed on Sasuke. This was the full divine seal. The one that a god of destruction used to contain something permanently, to place it beyond recovery, beyond resurrection, beyond any manipulation or escape. The seal wrapped around Kaguya. She fought it. Her power surged against the binding. The full, unrestrained force of the chakra mother, pushing against constraints she had never encountered. The seal held. The divine seal, powered by godly ki, powered by the nature of destruction itself, held against the origin of all chakra in this world and did not give. Kaguya's struggles weakened. Her eyes, the Byakugan, the Sharingan, dimmed. The seal closed around her, layer by layer, wrapping her in violet light that compressed and compressed until she was contained in a point of luminescence no larger than a marble. The marble hung in the void where a dimension had been. Naruto took it, held it in his palm, looked at it. "I'm starving," he said. The void dissolved. Reality reasserted itself. The dimensional shift reversed. The battlefield returned, the same plateau, the same sky, the same armies, now reunited, now standing in the aftermath of a fight that had happened in a place they couldn't see but could feel in their bones. Naruto landed on the battlefield. The ultra ego aura faded. The dark purple receded. The crushing, building pressure eased back to the normal, ambient. This is just how Naruto feels to be near weight. He stood in the center of the allied shinobi forces. 90,000 warriors. 5 nations. Every Kage, every commander, every soldier who had survived the war. He was holding a marble. "Is it over?" Tsunade asked. She was standing 20 meters away, her diamond seal deployed, her legendary strength poised, her medical knowledge telling her that the readings she was getting from the boy in front of her were not compatible with anything she understood about biology. "It's over," Naruto said. He pocketed the marble. "Anyone have food?" Silence. Then a chunin from the supply corps, a woman from the hidden cloud whose name was Mabui and whose primary contribution to the war effort had been logistics, walked across the empty space between the army and the god and held out a rice ball. Naruto took it. "Thank you," he said. He ate it. It was not ramen. It was not a 10. It was barely a 6. But it was food, and it was offered by someone who had just watched a god seal the origin of all chakra and decided that feeding him was the correct response. Naruto would remember Mabui. She had the right priorities. Inside the seal, deep inside, in the space between Naruto's divine consciousness and the quiet, terrified corner where the Nine-Tails had been hiding for 15 years, something shifted. Kurama, the nine-tailed fox, opened one enormous eye. It had been silent for the entire war. Silent for most of Naruto's life. Curled in a corner of the seal space, as far from Naruto's awareness as it could get, breathing quietly, existing as inconspicuously as a mountain-sized fox made of pure chakra could exist. Now it spoke, not a scream, not a roar, a low rumble. The kind of sound a very large creature makes when it has been thinking for a very long time and has finally decided to say something. "You are still annoying." Naruto, walking through the battlefield, eating his rice ball, acknowledged the voice the way he acknowledged most things, with mild, half-lidded disinterest. And yet you're still here. Kurama had no good answer for that. The fox settled back into its corner, but its eyes stayed open, watching, for the first time in 15 years, not watching with fear. With something closer to curiosity, the war ended. The allied shinobi forces stood down. The Edo Tensei army crumbled as Kabuto's technique was disrupted. Itachi, in a final act of fraternal loyalty, had found and neutralized the snake's apprentice during the dimensional battle. The resurrected dead returned to death. The battlefields went quiet. The five nations began the long process of counting costs, treating wounded, and writing the history of the strangest war the world had ever seen. In the histories that would be written, Naruto's contribution would be described in language that ranged from clinical to mythological, depending on the author. The intelligence community would produce a 13-volume classified analysis titled Asset Uzumaki, a comprehensive threat assessment, that concluded on its final page with the sentence, "We assess with high confidence that the subject's full capabilities remain unknown and likely unknowable." The common soldiers told simpler stories. A boy with purple eyes walked onto a battlefield and the war ended. That was the version that survived. Naruto walked home, not flew, walked. Through the land of fire's forests, along the roads, past the villages and farms and rivers that made up the country he had been protecting without quite meaning to his entire life. He walked because walking was slow and he was tired. Not physically, not from exertion, but from the deep existential fatigue of having fully remembered what he was for the first time and then having to compress himself back into a mortal frame. The dreams would be clearer now. He knew that. The face he couldn't quite see, Whis, the name was Whis, he was almost sure, would be sharper. The memories of the palace and the planet and the life before this, life would come in waves, and he would have to decide what to do with them. But that was a problem for later. Right now, the road was quiet, the sun was setting, and Konoha's gates were ahead. Someone was standing at the gates. Naruto stopped walking. His eyes, violet, cat-like, currently fully open, focused on the figure standing at the entrance to the village. Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, his father. But that was wrong, because the Edo Tensei had been released, and every resurrected shinobi should have returned to the Pure Land. Minato should not be standing there. He should be dead. Except, Naruto searched his memory, the battlefield, the chaos, the dimensional shift. In the fraction of a second before Kaguya had pulled him into her dimension, he had felt something, a soul, familiar, being released from an Edo Tensei binding, beginning its journey back to the Pure Land, and he had reached out. Not with his hands, with his ki, with the divine seal that he could deploy faster than thought, faster than instinct, faster than the speed at which a soul could travel between worlds. He had sealed his father's soul before it could leave. A quiet reflex, so fast, so instinctive that he hadn't consciously registered doing it, like catching something falling off a table. You don't think, you just act. And now Minato stood at the gate, mortal, confused, alive. He was wearing the same Hokage cloak he always wore. His blonde hair was the same. His blue eyes were the same, confused, wet, looking at his son with an expression that combined joy and bewilderment and the very specific look of a man who had been dead and was now not dead and did not fully understand the transition. "You're short," Naruto said. Minato laughed. He couldn't help it. The laugh burst out of him. Surprised, relieved, overwhelmed. He stood at the gate of his village, back from death, and his son's first words were an observation about his height. And then Kushina materialized beside Minato. Not from the Edo Tensei, not from a resurrection technique. The seal that had kept her soul, the remnant of her chakra that she had placed in the seal during the Nine Tails attack, had been maintained by the interaction between Kurama's chakra and Naruto's divine ki. Unconsciously. For 15 years, Naruto's godly energy had preserved his mother's spiritual signature like amber preserving a leaf. And when the war ended and the spiritual plane settled, that preserved signature had manifested. Kushina was here. Solid. Real. Red hair and all. She took one look at Naruto. Taller now, older, carrying the weight of divinity and war in a marble that contained an ancient god, and grabbed his face in both hands. "My baby!" She was crying, full, messy, loud crying. the kind of crying that involved shaking shoulders and running nose and complete disregard for dignity. Mom, you're so tall now, and your eyes are still purple, and you need a haircut. And Mom, don't you mom me. I have been dead and I missed everything, and you sealed a goddess and you didn't even wear a jacket. I'm wearing a jacket, a warmer jacket. Naruto endured it, the god who had sealed Kaguya Otsutsuki, who had dismantled Madara Uchiha, who had broken the Akatsuki single-handedly, stood at the gates of his village and endured his mother squishing his cheeks and crying on his collar with the dignity of a divine being embarrassed by a parent, which is to say, no dignity at all. His face was red. His expression was the universal expression of a teenage boy being publicly loved by his mother. He looked offended. He looked uncomfortable. He looked, underneath all of it, in a place that he would never show anyone and would deny if asked, quietly and overwhelmingly relieved. They were here. Both of them. Alive, solid, real. He didn't know how. He didn't fully understand the mechanics of what he had done, but they were here. And the ache that had lived in his chest since the first dream about a planet with too many moons and a companion he couldn't fully remember, that ache was for this moment quiet. Minato put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. Kushina still had his face. 3 Uzumaki Namakazes standing at the gate, alive against all odds and logic and the general operating parameters of reality. Let's go home, Minato said. They went home. Team 7 reunited 3 days later. It was not planned. It was not arranged. It happened the way all important things happen, naturally, without ceremony, in a place that mattered. Ichiraku Ramen. Kakashi arrived first. He sat down, ordered a bowl, and pulled out his book. He had been reading the same page for 3 days because his brain kept interrupting with flashbacks of his student dismantling reality, and he had to start over each time. Sakura arrived second. She sat beside Kakashi. She had spent the 3 days since the war's end in the hospital, healing wounded, sleeping in 4-hour shifts, doing the work that needed doing because someone had to, and she was capable. She was tired in the good way, the way that meant she had been useful. Sasuke arrived third. He had come back. He had heard the war stories, fragments, whispers, the kind of intelligence that traveled through the shinobi world like wildfire. His team had fought a war. His village had been threatened. And the teammate who had kicked him into a cliff face had sealed a god. Sasuke could not stay away from that. Not out of rivalry, not out of jealousy, out of the simple, stubborn fact that he was part of this team, whether the team needed him or not. And walking away had been tried, and it had ended with him embedded in a rock wall. He had learned the lesson. He walked into Ichiraku. He saw Kakashi. He saw Sakura. He sat down, 2 stools from where Naruto always sat. Nobody said anything about it. Nobody needed to. Naruto arrived last. He walked in from the street with his hands in his pockets and his eyes half closed, and the same ambient pressure that had defined his existence since birth. The quiet, constant, reality-bending weight of a god choosing to be small. He sat on his stool. Third from the left, the one with the wobble. Tochi. The old man was already cooking. He had seen them arrive one by one. He had understood, with the intuition of a man who had been feeding these kids since they were small, that this was a moment. He put everything he had into the broth. Minato and Kushina arrived together. They squeezed in at the end of the counter. Kushina immediately began talking to Sakura about medical jutsu. Minato settled into the quiet observation mode he had perfected over 15 years of watching his son exist. Kakashi ate with his mask down. Nobody commented. Nobody looked. Tochi and Ayame had known his face for years and had never told. Some things were sacred. This was one of them. The ramen came, bowls placed in front of everyone, steam rising, the aroma filling the small stand with the kind of warmth that had nothing to do with temperature. They ate. Not in silence. In the comfortable noise of people who knew each other. Kushina told Sakura about a training technique. Kakashi and Minato discussed village reconstruction logistics in low tones. Sasuke ate quietly, 2 stools down, present and accounted for. Naruto was on his 4th bowl when Minato asked the question. It came carefully, gently. The way a man asks something he has been building toward for a very long time, across years and reports and sleepless nights and the accumulated weight of raising a child who was something beyond him. The super shinobi god, Minato said. Did you find them? The counter went quiet. Not dramatically, just the natural settling of conversation when something important is being asked. Naruto did not answer immediately. He picked up his chopsticks. He lifted a perfect coil of noodles from the broth. He held them there, steaming, and thought. He thought about every fight, not in sequence, not in order, but all at once, the way a god thinks in simultaneous panorama. Kakashi in Training Ground 7, dodging without trying. Zabuza on the bridge, one hit. Haku and his mirrors, shattered. Orochimaru and his snake, erased. Neji and his fate, disproven. Sasuke at the Valley of the End, freed. Itachi's Tsukuyomi, broken. Kasame, through the trees. Deidara's nothing. Pain's theology, Obito's ghost. Madara on one knee, bleeding, saying, "So there is someone." Kaguya, the origin, the closest. The only opponent who had made him feel something other than boredom. Not challenge, not threat, but the faintest echo of what it might be like to fight something worthy. The faintest echo, not the thing itself. "No," Naruto said finally. He put the noodles in his mouth, chewed. The thoughtful chew of a being who had searched for something his entire existence, this one and the one before, and had not yet found it. Not yet. He said it without sadness, without disappointment, without the weight of failure. He said it with patience, the patience of something truly ancient. The patience that knows the search is the point. That tomorrow the sun will rise, and the day after that, and the day after that, and each one carries the possibility that somewhere in the vast, strange, ramen-scented universe, something worthy is waking up. And somewhere else, in a part of reality that had no name in any human language, that existed outside the shinobi world, and outside the mortal plane, and outside everything that Naruto's compressed mortal mind could consciously access, something enormous stirred. It was not a person. Not exactly. It was a presence, a pattern. The kind of awareness that exists in the spaces between dimensions, in the fabric of a multiverse that contains more worlds than any one world knows about. It had been watching. Since the night of the Nine-Tails attack. Since a newborn baby had opened violet eyes and said Hakai and erased a death god's arm. It had watched with the patience of something truly, genuinely ancient. Patient the way mountains are patient, the way stars are patient, the way the space between galaxies is patient. It opened its eyes. Whatever it was, wherever it was, it opened its eyes and it smiled. Good, it thought. Keep looking. The thought crossed the distance between wherever it was in the mortal world the way light crosses space, instantly, silently, arriving without announcement. Naruto felt something. A flicker, a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the ramen. He paused, chopsticks halfway to his mouth, and looked up. Through the gap in Ichiraku's curtain, the stars were coming out. The first ones, faint and distant, and carrying light from places unimaginably far away. He looked at them for a long moment. Then he went back to his ramen. The bowl was perfect. The broth was the deepest, richest thing Tucci had ever produced. 18 hours of simmering, elevated by the old man's absolute refusal to serve anything less than his best to the boy who had given him his first 10. The noodles were hand-pulled perfection. The chashu dissolved on the tongue. Naruto finished the bowl. He set it down. He leaned back on his stool, the one with the wobble, and folded his arms behind his head. His mother was laughing at something, Sakura said. His father was smiling at Kakashi. Sasuke was eating, 2 stools down, present. Tochi was cooking. Ayame was running bowls. The stand was warm and loud and full. He was not bored. Not bored at all. The ramen was too good to be bored. And the company, loud, damaged-ass, stubborn, fragile, human, his, was better than he would ever admit. Ayame. Yeah? Another bowl. She was already ladling the broth. And Naruto Uzumaki, the mortal reincarnation of Lord Beerus, god of destruction, the being who had sealed the origin of chakra and dismantled legends and terrified death gods and dropped immortals into crevasses and raided ramen with the ruthless precision of a divine food critic, sat on a wobbling stool in a small stand in a rebuilt village under a sky full of stars and ate his 5th bowl of the evening and did not think about the future. The future would come. It always did. There would be more fights, more ramen, more moments where the god and the boy existed in the same space, and neither one could quite tell where one ended and the other began. But right now, right here, Bowl 5 was perfect. The company was good. Tomorrow was a mystery. And somewhere in the cosmos, something was smiling, and the search continued. And that was enough. It was more than enough. Naruto closed his eyes, not to sleep, just to sit with the feeling, the warmth, the noise, the particular irreplaceable, impossibly human experience of being full and surrounded and alive. When he opened them again, the stars were brighter. He picked up his chopsticks. He kept eating. 10 out of 10.
That's it. That's the whole movie. A god walked among mortals, ate ramen, and didn't even break a sweat. If this broke your brain, subscribe, because we do this every week, and it only gets more unhinged from here. See you in the next one.